Whether you believe you're wasting your life or not, you are correct. When we talk about wasted time, we're entering the realm of regret. And so we're leaving the realm of the here and the now. There could be many reasons, but my best guess from experience is that it's because we're not happy with where we're at right now. We don't like how we feel right now. We don't like how life looks right now. And then we go and blame it on ourselves, or rather our past selves, which is kind of foolproof, because what are they gonna do? Argue with us? No, they don't exist. This is a story about how I stopped wasting my life and started living it. When people talk about regret, we're basically using regret as a cover-up for dissatisfaction. But I have a secret to tell you. If you had the thing that you thought would make you happy right now, that magic thing that would make your life up until this point not have been wasted time, you would still find something to complain about. I promise you. There would still be some other frustration. There would still be some other thing that you wanted. That's just how you are. It's not nothing to do with the past version of you. They were living their life, and now you're living a life and you can't deal with it, so you're trying to pawn it off on you 10 years ago, in your 20s or your teens or whatever. But we don't need to do that. We don't need to escape our reality. We can actually embrace our reality right now. And we can bring a hell of a lot more joy, excitement, and good fortune into it. But the first thing we got to do is realize that we didn't waste anything. You know, I look at my life now, 28 years old, and I look at all of the successful people online. It's not hard to find people that are successful these days, and a lot of the people are super young, way younger than I am. And I look at these successful YouTubers or successful artists and I think to myself, oh man, why didn't I just take action back then like they are now? Then maybe I'd be a YouTube millionaire. But here's the thing, when I was a teenager, when I was in my early 20s, I had different priorities. I was prioritizing staying in my comfort zone. I was prioritizing staying away from the critique of people online. I was prioritizing not failing. For a long time, I was totally unwilling to fail. Back then, I didn't see the value of doing all of those things, and so I didn't do them. Now, it doesn't really make sense to give out to that past version of myself who was doing the best he could with what he had. He believed there would be less pain if he didn't put himself out there, and so he didn't. And that's okay. I can understand that. I can appreciate that. Back then, I didn't have any consideration to the financial realities of this world because I didn't know anything about them. Wasn't really educated about that in school. It's so easy for us to be angry at ourselves for the things that we didn't do because we look at where we're at now and we're not happy with it, and we say, oh, if only I had done something different back then I wouldn't be in this situation. Well, who knows? You can't know because that's some other dream reality that never happened. But here's the thing, it could happen. Before you save your wasted life, you need to realize that you're wasting your life right now if you are looking back at your past and saying, oh, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. And that's why things are so up in the air and just not cool for me right now. A lot of people, when they come to their older years, they'll regret the time they didn't spend with friends or family, or the time that they didn't spend traveling the world because they were in a corporate job or just didn't have that flexibility, you know, whatever your situation is. Then there's people that don't have the corporate job, that travel and did all of that stuff, you know, had the flexible lifestyle. I've never had a corporate job, and I actually travel quite a bit, and I have a very flexible life, but I envy and I really wonder what it would be like to have a 9-to-5, what it would be like to have that stable salary. So if you're sitting on the other end thinking, oh, if only I had traveled more, well, then you would have the same questions that I have. What's it like to be a part of a team where you're, you know, having office banter and you go for walks on your lunch and all of this? You see, the grass is always greener. As cheesy as that sounds, I have yet to encounter a circumstance that I am satiated by to the fullest degree. Because there's always something else there's always a little niggle. There's always some other thought. There's always some other possibility that I wish to explore simultaneously. But the thing is, we can't do everything at once. All you can do is do a bit of this, a bit of that, and, you know, use your time as you can. But you're never going to get everything done. There is no secret sauce formula that just results in the perfect life with no regret. Other than the realization that regret is man-made. You made it. Your external situation is causing you to have this reaction. But you can change that. Viktor Frankl was a concentration camp survivor, and he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. He said that even though the prisoners were suffering at the hands of their oppressor, if they could find meaning within that suffering, that it increased their likelihood of surviving the experience. In a sense, when you have a regret or you say that you wasted your time, you are building yourself a prison. Yes, it's hard to be where you are, but if you can give meaning to that suffering, then you can create something worthwhile with that experience. We are all subject to external forces that can change our lives, whether they're positive or negative forces. But the one thing we always possess, regardless of external circumstances, is our freedom to choose how we respond to our circumstances. We are in control of our perspectives, our choices, and what we make of the situation we find ourselves in. When I was 22 years old, I had saved up a little bit of money, more than I had ever had at that point, and I really just didn't know what to do with it. I had more than I needed, you know, I had my rent paid, I was having a relatively luxurious life in terms of eating out and stuff like that, no Lambos, but I was thinking, like, I have all of this money and I just didn't know what to do with it, so I just left it in a bank, or I just spent it on stuff because I was like, well, I've got so much, I need to spend it. But I didn't know anything about investing or personal finance or like what I could do with this money to help build wealth, and that was in 2018. And now in 2023, I think to myself, I'm such an idiot for not investing in crypto or in the stock market, because I would have had such a grand return. At the time, I didn't know any of that. So does it make sense to beat myself up in hindsight? How is that fair? And I know life's not fair, but you can be fair to yourself at least. That regret that I feel would be better utilized if I put that same energy toward excitement for future possibilities, for opportunities to come. I could take that energy that I'm dedicating to being angry at myself for what I didn't do, and I can start doing things now. I can start taking action and steps toward the goals that I wish I had achieved by now. Just because you don't have the thing you want right now doesn't mean you can't work toward it now. Stop regretting and start implementing. Because in a sense, our regret is a form of self-sabotage. It's a form of procrastination. We're ensuring that we never actually achieve the goal that we wish to attain. That thing that if we had, we would say, oh, I didn't waste my life. We have the opportunity right now to do something about it. But instead we're saying, oh, I wasted my life and now I'm sad. You're sad, and that's okay. It's okay to be sad, seriously. But there's something you can do right now. The thing is that you're going to need to let go of the idea of instant gratification, because nothing really great and sustainable comes quickly. We need time. We need to have skin in the game for the compounding effect of our action, of our energetic investment to come to fruition. You could gamble and make money fast, but you probably blow it all or develop a gambling addiction or something like that. If you're trying to fast track happiness through partying and a hedonistic lifestyle, it might feel good for a while, but you'll probably burn out and crash at some point. Ironically, the reason you feel shitty about not starting something 10 years ago is the same reason you're not starting it today. It's because you don't want to deal with slow progress. It's like annoying having to get up in the morning and do something when you don't see any results. It's like really demotivating when you don't get that external validation. But ironically, the only way you're going to get that external validation is by taking the action time and time again. And then you'll start to get validated by the external, and then you'll start to think, okay, I think I'm onto something. This is working. I can commit more to this, and now it'll become more sustainable. But you got to get over the hump. You got to just embrace the suck for a little while. Nobody's immediately successful, and right now you have the opportunity to start laying the bricks on the road to success. but the road's not going to arrive at success after laying 1 brick or 2 bricks. You might need like 10 or 20 or 1,000 bricks. But if you don't start the job, you're never going to get the paycheck. If you just start doing the thing today, you really thank yourself like 10 days down the road, because it's like, oh wow, I started and I've got actually a foundation. And then if you don't start today, I guarantee somebody else is. You might look at them in a few weeks or months or years from now and see how far their road is, gone, and you're like, oh, that could have happened for me if I had just taken the action, taken the first step. But I didn't, because I was too focused on how I had wasted my life. So you need to choose one or the other. Build now or regret the thing that you didn't build 10 years ago. Like, one is probably going to be more preferable for you than the other. Use that regret as a signal to make change in your life today. I know that there's probably going to be a bunch of objections from people, and I honor the pain that you're in. I honor the frustration. If you are lacking time, if you're lacking funds, if you're lacking energy, I promise you that there is still something that you can do. You'd be surprised of how much energy, time, etc. that you can recuperate when you stop getting down on yourself for what you didn't do. That's a huge energy leakage. If you just convert that to energy in the direction of the future you want to build for yourself, you're going to have a drastically different experience of this life. Let's be real. Maybe you don't have the flexibility that you had in your 20s. Maybe you don't have a ton of money to start something new. Maybe you don't have the time to do 2-hour workouts or join a book club and a yoga class and a swimming group all at the same time. But you can do one thing at a time for a small amount of time. One of the biggest things that gets in our way is that we look at a project, like say you want to build a soap company. You might want to build a soap company and think to yourself, well, I can never build a soap company. I've got kids, I don't have enough money, I'm in college and I have a job. Okay, well, even if you had no commitments and all the money in the world, you're not going to build a soap company in one day. It's going to take time to think of what products you want to offer, think of what suppliers you want to get the soap from, think of how you're going to shape the bars of soap. Where are you going to fulfill the orders? Where are you going to promote the soap? Are you going to sell online? Are you going to sell in shops? All of these things are going to take time. Rather than saying to yourself, oh, I could never do that, it's too big a task. Start with one thing that you could do today that would lead to having a soap empire down the road. So just off the top of my head, I would investigate what is soap made out of, because I don't know. I'm sure there's many different ways you can make soap. What soap do you want to make? Do you want it to be eco-friendly? Do you want it to be vegan? These are just simple steps that don't take long. And if you started doing that now, you would start to get momentum. You would start to lay the bricks, the foundation for your road to success. So often we just look at the soap empire and we're like, I could never build $1 billion soap empire. Well, not with that attitude. But if you just like start and think, well, how can I make a bar of soap and use it just in my own shower? Like, you be your first customer and then worry about selling it to other people. If you wanted to start a YouTube channel, you're like, I could never have 10,000 or 100,000 or 1 million subscribers. Well, you're not going to have it tomorrow probably. And you're not going to have it next month. Probably won't have it next year either. But if you start posting videos today, you're increasing the likelihood that you might have it in 2 years from now. But we just see the blank slate and we think, oh, it's too much. The person who's wasting their life is saying, I can't do anything. The person who is doing something and failing is doing a great job. Don't look to your past self and be like, oh, you're an idiot. If it weren't for you, we'd have a soap empire by now. You could have a soap empire. And you know what? There's probably a lot of stuff that your past self did that's going to help you with your journey to greatness. That's something that we often just don't really realize. You know, I was in film school, but honestly, I came out of there and I did not know how to use a camera. And I was angry at myself because I was like, how did I just do 4 years and not learn how to use a camera? Well, at the time, I wasn't interested in camera work. I was shy and intimidated by the other people in my cohort because they were passionate about cameras and they knew how to use cameras, and I was afraid of, using it the wrong way. So what did I do? After I graduated, I bought my own camera and I just started travel vlogging. And it wasn't very good at first, but I got better at videography. Now, here I am, I have a production company. I create content for people. I'm a consultant. I help people create content for their business. I help people speak on camera. I'm a mentor, but that's because I went through all of that process. But if I had just said, oh, I wasted college because I didn't learn how to use a camera and left it at that, we wouldn't be here today, would we? I really don't like those videos of old people on their deathbeds talking about all the things they regret, because you're always going to regret something. Stop trying to live a life without regrets. It's the stupidest goal ever, because you're always going to regret something if you want to regret something. There's always going to be some experience that you wish you could have had that you didn't have. The bar is always going to be raised. It's the mindset and it's a perspective shift. That's how to stop wasting your life. It's not by doing things different as such even. It's just realizing that it is what it is. You can do things now that you like doing that are contributing to what you envision success to be, but know that when you reach that success, if you reach that success, there's going to be some other version of success that you then come up with. So rather than trying to achieve that thing, focus on planting a seed today, plant an intention, and then water it tomorrow. Take action, surround yourselves with people that are going to nourish that. Those are the conditions required for growth. We need nourishing people around us that can support us in our growth. So that might mean read books that help you. It might mean listen to podcasts. It might mean make new friends. It might mean exercise so that you're healthy and you can have the clarity to think and act in alignment with your vision. But don't regret the things you didn't do. You couldn't waste your life if you tried. It's just a matter of whether you want to go down the path of regret or the path of possibility. Take care of yourself. That was intentional. I hate my job. This person isn't texting me back. I have all of these bills to pay. So here in front of me, I have some common phrases or thought processes that we might go through throughout our day, throughout a week. And we're going to reframe these thought processes. We're going to reframe these sayings that we hear every day into a more empowered phrase. A phrase that puts us into our power, that puts us into a vibration of gratitude. So the first phrase we have is, oh man, I have all of these bills to pay. You know, you have bills, you need to spend money. A reframe for that might be, I'm so fortunate to have received the value of the products and services that I'm now going to exchange money for. Because isn't it a gift that we have the opportunity to avail of services like Wi-Fi or electricity, or maybe you're paying rent, you know, like consider the value that having an internet connection has given you this past month. Maybe you fulfilled a project or something, and maybe you got some money out of that, or maybe you learned something. What value has the internet given you this month? You know, you're paying like 30, 40 quid or whatever for an internet bill, but you're exchanging value for value. So what have you gotten out of your internet? And if you haven't gotten anything out of it, then maybe cancel that bill. Like, why are you giving value to things that don't give you value back? So consider that, you know. You paid rent. Isn't it such a privilege that I have somewhere to live this month? That I have a roof over my head, that, you know, I have this place to chill at the end of the day. Electricity bill. Isn't it amazing that I can turn on the air conditioning or heat myself up if it's cold. These are such gifts. So instead of, oh no, another bill to pay, we say, I'm so grateful for the blessings that I'm about to exchange money for. Because that's all it is. We give value, and in exchange we receive value. And if the thing that we're giving value to doesn't give us value back, we can just cancel that subscription, If Netflix isn't giving you any joy, cancel it. If you don't need the internet, cancel it. If you don't like the place that you're living, if you don't think it's worth the amount you pay for it, cancel it. All right, number 2. This person isn't texting me back. You're texting someone. Maybe it's a new lover you got on the scene, or maybe it's a friend, or maybe it's someone that you were hoping to do some work for, or maybe it's an employer, something like that. And they're not hitting you back. They're not texting you back. They're not responding to your emails. And you're like, oh man, how about we reframe this? Because that's quite disempowering, You're saying that if this person doesn't get back to you, that you can't, be fulfilled, that you can't go about your day with joy. So we say, if this person and I are aligned to be in relationship with one another, we will connect. If we're not aligned or in tune, then it's best for us both. Why do you want to be in touch with someone that doesn't want to be in touch with you? Why do you want a job in a place that doesn't want you to work for them? If we are aligned to be in relationship with somebody, be it romantically, be it as friends, be it as, client relationship or an employee-employer relationship, if we're aligned to be in those relationships, then the connection will be made, and it will be made effortlessly. Maybe someone's not responding to you. They will either respond when the time is appropriate, in which case, cool, you have a relationship there. Or they will not respond, which means they are not committed to being in relationship with you. Maybe you put something out there and it's not received, and that's okay. Because we both need to be committed to a relationship. It needs to be a hell yes from both parties, because otherwise, maybe you do come into a relationship and it's like, didn't actually want this job in the first place, but now I'm here with this job, with these people, and we're not really getting along. And 2 months, 3 months, 1 year, 2 years passes, and then you finally realize, oh, actually this was never a good idea from the first place, and you forced it. So we can let go of this need to have all of the relationships that maybe our mind wants, but if we really step back and humble ourselves and see it from a higher perspective, from a divine perspective, relationships are easy. When it comes naturally, and it doesn't come with this push-pull sort of force. So if they're not hitting you back, if they're not responding to you, that's okay. Give them a blessing as you go your way and they go their way. Because that is opening up space for the relationships that are going to serve you and the relationships that are going to serve the other people. Because we all are deserving of our people, of our joy, of our satisfaction. Number 3, being alone. We say, if I had a partner, then I would be happy. But see, the thing is, when we say that, we're saying, I'm not happy until I have a partner. You're playing a zero-sum game with yourself. You're like, oh, I'm not going to be happy until this happens. But what if there's an opportunity for you to feel joy and fulfillment right now? even though your partner is not here at the moment? What if this opportunity in being alone right now is giving you the chance to cultivate a deeper relationship with yourself? It's giving you the chance to get to know what your needs are. It's giving you the chance to be in silence, to cultivate presence. And then when your partner does come along, when your community, when your tribe comes along, you're then in a position to really be present and to be of service. Because if you're just waiting until all of that stuff happens before you can start feeling good, it means that you're outsourcing your own truth to these people. You're not going to be able to show up fully for other people if you can't show up for yourself when you're alone. So take a minute to yourself, take a week to yourself, take a year to yourself. Maybe it's longer. As long as it needs to be is how it is, and there's no need to force to move any faster than is warranted, because if that is the case, you might find then when you do come into relationship that you haven't nurtured yourself, you haven't filled up your own cup, and so you're maybe putting too much pressure on the community or onto your partner, whatever it might be. So take this opportunity of being alone as an opportunity to cultivate a deeper, stronger connection to self so that you can show up in a bigger and better way for the benefit of all when that time for union does come. Number 4, I hate my job. It sucks. A lot of people might find themselves in a position they don't like at work. Or it doesn't even have to be at work. It can be if you're playing a certain sport, you don't like it. Hanging out with certain people, you don't like it. Certain hobbies that maybe you've grown out of, and you realize you don't like it. This is just a gift, because you're realizing, okay, I don't like this thing. I'm going to have a lot less of this in my life going forward. So it doesn't mean you have to quit your job right away. But maybe you start looking elsewhere. You start looking in a different sector, a different field altogether, because you found that what you're currently doing isn't serving you. And that's okay. We're people. We change all of the time. So we honor where we are at. We don't just drop our bags or take our bags and leave. With awareness, we say to ourselves, okay, this isn't working. What can I do now to get to a place that is better of service to me and the people around me? In any situation that we find ourselves, there's 2 ways to spin it every time. One is disempowering, one can be empowering. One is a vibration of gratitude, the other is scarcity. Oh no, I have to give this away. But look at what you received. Oh no, this person won't talk to me. What's the opportunity in that? Maybe we're not aligned. Maybe it's time for me to talk to myself. There's always an opportunity in a so-called negative situation, but we just need to tune into what that opportunity is. And I might take, taking a back seat for a minute, because we react with all of our subconscious beliefs and programmings based on what we've learned from the people around us as we grew up. But we have the opportunity now, as conscious adult human beings, to shift that, to change that. And as we do it for ourselves, it changes for our communities, it changes for the world. So keep that in mind next time you're feeling a bit down. How can I reframe this? What is the opportunity in this situation? I'd love to hear if you have any other reframes that you might have thought of as you watch this video or as you go about your days. What's the situation that maybe you initially perceived as negative, but then you saw the opportunity in? Please feel free to drop a comment below, letting us know. And I hope you have a beautiful day as always. Hello, my friend. I hope you're well. And if you're not, that's okay too. Because today we're talking about being gentle toward ourselves. Sometimes we start our day off, start our week off with the best of intentions, and we do our meditation, we do our exercise, we do all of the good things, and somehow or another something happens and you just find yourself in a downward spiral. Like you find yourself anxious or overthinking things. You find yourself feeling down and depressed, and sometimes we just can't avoid feeling like that. Like yesterday, I did all of the things that, nourish mind, body, spirit. I did my exercise, I did my meditation, my breath work, everything. And then, something just pushed me over the edge. I got really frustrated at a task I was doing, and I was just really angry and upset about everything. And it's in those moments when things like that happen that the best thing we can do for ourselves is to be gentle toward ourselves and to not be getting angry at ourselves for feeling down, because sometimes it just happens. It's not going to last forever, but it does happen. And the goal isn't to just eradicate all bad emotion or feeling. That's just not reasonable. We all go through it, and it's recognizing how we can help ourselves in those moments that makes all of the difference. How can I nurture myself right now because I'm not feeling great? What can I do for myself? So when you find yourself in a funk, your mood's dipped, things aren't going according to plan, the best thing to do in that situation is to switch up things in your environment. You can't solve a problem from the same consciousness that has created the problem in the first place. So that is to say, it's better for you to recalibrate, to reset in any way that you can. And there's so many different methods and techniques that we can use. To list a few of what I was doing yesterday when I hit my kind of roadblock, I like to talk to someone that uplifts my spirit. So my little brother's a good guy for that. I also do a bit of movement. So I did some qigong. You can do yoga, you can do a workout. We want to get the energy that's stuck in our body, we want to get it to flow, and exercise is a great way to do that. Also, another great thing is to take a shower. Yesterday I took 3 showers, and cold showers specifically are very effective at calming your nervous system. So it's a little bit uncomfortable, and it might sound a little weird to get into an uncomfortable situation when you feel uncomfortable. But if you can brave it for a couple of minutes, you'll find a deep, deep sense of calm, and it's a very powerful way to reset your mind and body. And the most important thing is not to try and rush your way out of your sadness. Don't try to run away from your anxiety, because these emotions, they come and they go, and when they're here, you need to let them be there, and don't try to mask over them with like binging on social media or binging on unhealthy foods or unhealthy habits. When you're in a situation that feels tight, hard, and heavy, that is the time where you need to nurture yourself, where you need to be gentle toward yourself. You don't need to rush around to complete the tasks that you had on your list today. It's better to approach those things when you're feeling more clarity, when you're feeling more calm. So don't be afraid to take some time to rest, curl up with a blanket, have a cup of tea, watch a movie, eat some chocolate. That's what I do. I love eating dark chocolate and watching a movie. It's my favorite thing to do when I'm feeling a bit blue. So find what works for you, but the most important thing is that you're gentle toward yourself, that you don't beat yourself up for feeling sad, for feeling anxious, for feeling depressed. These are all totally normal things that we all go through. And it's in those moments that you're going through it that you need more love, not less. And the best person to give you that love is yourself. So that's my invitation to you, is prepare yourself a list of some things. You know, maybe you have like your emergency chocolate bar or whatever it is that you like to eat. Have that there for you when times get tough, because they will. It's just life, you know, times get tough sometimes, and it's fine. And then afterward, you know, things will go well again, and then they'll get tough again, and that's fine. You're not doing anything wrong, it's just being a human. So I hope you have a beautiful day. I hope this has served you well, and I thank you so much for being here. Thank you. Happiness. It's something that everybody seems to be promoting. Everybody strives for happiness. I've found that happiness is pretty much unattainable. So this video is not going to be about making you happy, but the alternative that I offer is how to live a happier life. And that takes away the destination of happiness. It takes away the goal of happiness. We don't need to be happy. We just need to be happier without feeling the pressure to actually arrive at the destination that we call happiness. Because to be honest, I'm not convinced that it actually exists. So just to give you a bit of context, like 4 years ago, I was feeling quite frustrated and lost in life. I didn't know how I was going to ever achieve the things I wanted to achieve. I wanted to be self-employed. I wanted to have friends. I wanted to live in a nice place that I enjoyed. Since then, I've lived and learned a little bit, and I've got together 4 keys or 4 ingredients to living a happier life that I'm going to share here. The 4th one is the most important, because without it, the previous 3 aren't really going to serve their purpose in contributing to that happier life that we're aiming for here. One ingredient that's really helped me to live a happier life in the last years is to have goals. And the reason I have goals is not necessarily to achieve the goals, but the goals give me a point of focus, and they give me a purpose each day. Today, my goal was to make a video. That's a small goal, but recently I ran a marathon, and that was a bigger goal that took maybe 3 to 4 months to complete. And even before that, I had a goal of running a half marathon. So that was, you know, almost a year ago, and I had this goal, and it was never really about running the half marathon or running the full marathon, but it was about what was required of me in order to at least attempt to actualize that goal. And what was required was that I needed to run. So even when I wasn't feeling good, I had that accountability, and so I would go and I would do the run. And of course, we know that running is exercise, which is good for mental health, good for overall contributing to a happier life. But also your goal might be to learn an instrument. You might have the ambition to learn how to play Banana Pancakes by Jack Johnson on the ukulele, and you tell a bunch of your friends that in 2 months' time you are going to play the song for them. And then that gives you the accountability, and it's going to get you to show up and play the ukulele even when you don't want to. Like maybe you actually don't get to do that showcase of the song, but the point is that in those moments when you feel lost and untethered, where you feel pain, anxiety, frustration, just unsure of what to do, you can reflect upon that goal and then get yourself moving. And of course, when we move, when we take action, when we exercise, when we play, when we write, or whatever it is that you're doing, it's going to bring vitality and vibrance into your being, and that's going to contribute to a happier life. Because when we stagnate, when we don't do things, when we just wallow in our pain and sorrow, which of course, look, we all do it, it's fine, it's not a big deal. I'm just here to offer a solution that might help when we're in these periods. I'm in a period right now where things are quite emotionally challenging for me, and it's the goal of, you know, creating and sharing with millions of people around the world that is keeping me anchored and keeping me here showing up. And this is a really enjoyable experience for me to be here, to be sharing, to be speaking. And it was difficult for me to get everything set up and to come up with the idea, but I know that this is valuable for me, and I know that it's going to be valuable for the people that connect with it on the other side. And so in those moments where you feel like things just are not going well and that they never will go well, if you have that goal that you set when you were in a place of clarity, it's going to make moving through this experience, as painful as it might be, a whole lot easier. And thus we live a happier life despite our pain. Go on frequent adventures. I was recently traveling and a thought or a sentence popped into my head, and the sentence was,
travel often, not always.
And what I interpreted that as was to travel but remain grounded at the same time. Because when one is always traveling, it's always exciting, it's always chaos, and there's not much grounding happening. Whereas if one is grounded all of the time, we can stagnate. And when we stagnate, we start to just feel off at times.
Traveling is about discovering new places. New places can be physical. New places can be states of being. A new perspective. When you travel, you leave the familiar and visit the unfamiliar. If you visit a new perspective by opening up your awareness beyond that which you think you know, consider a new thought philosophy. Maybe there's something more to life than what you thought there was. Say hi to the people that you look at and judge. Download a dating app and meet somebody new. Even though you think dating apps are stupid. Go for a hike even though you hate hiking. Go for a run even though you hate running. Don't eat food for a day. Just because. What's that like, I wonder? Travel often, not always, because if you always are traveling, you never ground, you never integrate and allow everything to settle.
It's about having a balance of the two, because when I've been traveling for extended periods, I might find myself in a situation where I feel stressed out and like not anchored, not tethered to my being or the earth and my purpose. And so the remedy for this, in my experience, was to ground and to find a settled location and to actually build something, build a foundation where I could have people around me, where I could have money coming, where I could have a place that I knew I could go back to at the end of every day. Because when you're traveling, you don't always know where you're going to be staying or who's going to be there, if anyone's going to be there. And so I believe that there's incredible value in finding a balance, an equilibrium between the two, because when we do this, then we get the best of both worlds. We get the sense of adventure, fun, and freedom that comes with traveling. When I say adventure, when I say travel, I mean travel outside of the realm of your everyday life and reality, because that's the container that we put ourselves in that can restrict us and prevent our growth and expansion. And it's by growing and expanding and realizing the spontaneous nature of this existence that ease and freedom emanates in, through, and around us. And this is super supportive in our mission to live a happier life where we find more joy in each and every moment. And the contrast that we recognize as we cultivate experiences of groundedness and adventure are what culminate in the totality of our existence here. A third ingredient to a happier life is to have community, because I believe that a place is only as good as the people that surround you in that place. And I've been in some pretty beautiful places, and I've been pretty miserable in those places because I didn't have anybody around me. Similarly, I've been in places that aren't so nice, and I've had people around me, and it just makes everything seem more enjoyable. And I think it's because a place in and of itself is quite neutral, but it's who we are in the where we are. You know, they say wherever you go, that's where you are. Whoever you're with is going to have a big impact upon who you are in the where that you are, because we're all mirrors for one another. And sometimes we forget our beauty and our gifts, and we need someone else to reflect that back to us. And if you're in a period of hardship or pain or challenge or self-doubt or whatever it might be, surrounding yourself with people that are going to uplift you on your journey can be super beneficial to contributing to the happier life that I believe we are all able to attain. And the thing about cultivating community is that community can take time to cultivate, and often when we're in a period of hardship or not feeling ourself, we might try to grab a shiny object. Like we might try to just go away somewhere. We might go somewhere familiar that we know is going to take the edge off. But the most sustainable solution that I have found is to actually take the time to be in a place and to cultivate community within that place. And that can take months, it can take years. And it takes courage because you need to actually meet and connect with the people that are going to become your community. It's like starting a business. You need to invest time or money and you won't see a return for a while. It's the same with building connections. You need to invest your time. You need to do things that you wouldn't usually do in order to connect with the people, and it'll happen often in very spontaneous ways. But once you have that community, once you have those people, everything gets easier, and the life you lead will be happier as a result, because you're able to give yourself to these people when they need it, and they're able to give themselves to you when you need it. And it's this beautiful synergy, symbiotic relationship where you can support and uplift one another as required. Community makes everything easier. It makes doing hard things easier. It makes going through emotional periods easier. It makes playing easier. And the fourth ingredient, and perhaps the most important, is to be alone. Take time by yourself. You can have loads of friends, you can have loads of adventure, and you can have all sorts of external goals in your life, and everything can be very busy and active in that respect. But if you don't take time by yourself to reflect, to breathe, to rest, and to integrate all of the other things going on in life, I think we're missing out. In yoga, the last posture that you typically do is called Shavasana, and it's said that without doing your Shavasana, which is basically just lying down on the ground for a few minutes at the end of your practice, the rest of your practice was a waste of time, because it's in the Shavasana where you actually absorb the nourishment, the nutrients of your practice. And it's said in many religious texts, the Sabbath, the day of rest, is imperative in order to reap the fruits of your labor from the 6 days prior. So they would say, if you work your ass off 6 days a week, but you don't rest for 1 day, all of the labor was wasted. And I find it very profound to contemplate such notions, because it seems so counterintuitive to what we've been conditioned to believe here in the world, that you have to work, that you have to grind, that you have to hustle and achieve things. But what if the secret to actually living a happier life is in taking that period of rest, taking that time to yourself, taking the moment to be away from everybody and everything, to drop your pen, to put down everything and just let your goals be for a minute. I've found in these moments of rest, I find equilibrium, I find balance, I find groundedness. Without the rest, it's near impossible to actually take inventory and take stock of everything. And being a human is a really weird experience. And there's good stuff happening one day, and then there's horrible things happening the next day, and then you might just have a period of just meh. Or you might have expectations and then you're let down, and then you're like, what the hell? My whole happiness was based on an expectation that never came to be. And then you realize, well, maybe my expectations need to change. Maybe I need to let go of them. Maybe I need to reevaluate how I live a happy life. Can I even live a happy life? I don't know that we can be happy all of the time, but we can be happier. That's it for this video. Have a great day. Check out this video next. You'll probably enjoy it. There's a newsletter you can sign up to, link in the description. I share helpful thoughts like this in written format. Take care of yourself. Have a beautiful day. Friends. We pop into the world and immediately start mingling. Family are the first people you meet, and let's refer to them as friends for the rest of this video, because, you know.
Potato, potato.
So you learn how to walk, how to talk, how to wipe your bum, all the generic human stuff. And then you go to school and learn some more generic stuff. This is where you're gonna make your generic friends. Friends that you just make because you're in the same room as them. Maybe your mom's friends' kids become your friends because that's convenient for both of your moms. Up until this point, you were just a generic human going through a generic system. But now, you're an adult, and along the way you've cultivated a sense of self, developed some interests of your own. And as we get more focused in life, as we begin to specialize in who we are. We need to build a supportive network around us that is going to keep us on track, to elevate us and to help us to actualize this version of ourselves. It's a whole thing in the self-improvement world that people talk about. Leaving your friends, cutting people off, cutting ties. It's like, oh, they're toxic. Well, we're going to take a different approach to the whole notion of friends and family and self-improvement today, because I think that a lot of people misunderstand or perhaps just don't approach it in the most productive and helpful way possible. So I'd like to shed some light on this based on my experience and based on some realizations that I've had around this. One of the main things that I see come up a lot is people judging other people as better than, or like, oh, they think they're all the rage and so they stop talking to us. It's valid for people to feel as though other people are, rejecting them or disregarding them, but it's the reason behind this that we need to look at. The way I see it is that our environment is what we will adapt to. When we're in school, or like historically, when you don't have any specific path in life, you're just learning the basics. But then when you want to do something more specific, you're going to need to connect with people and be around people that are on that same trajectory. If I'm running a marathon, which I am in August, it makes sense for me to train with people and to speak with people that are also running a marathon, because we both have the same goal and we both are learning the same things at the same time. Whereas if I was trying to network exclusively with people that are running half marathons, that's not going to help me achieve my goal of running a marathon. I'm not saying a marathon is better than a half marathon. And this is where we run into this predicament where people say, oh, you think you're better. It's like, no, that's the meaning that you're giving it. We give meaning to things, right? So if I want to run a marathon versus someone else wanting to run a half marathon, neither of those are better or worse. Although someone might come along and perceive one better than the other. But ultimately, that's your trip. That's my trip. That's the human ego taking hold of the steering wheel and bringing judgment to something that was actually neutral to begin with. If we look at this in terms of business or health or trying new ways of living, new ways of building wealth, if you're hanging around with people that don't have experience with that, then it's going to be unlikely that you're going to find support to build what it is you're hoping to build. If I want to start a business, if I want to learn about how to, legally avoid tax, the best person for me to speak to and to spend time with is somebody that has experience with that. So I might be likely to speak to entrepreneurs who have been on the path of entrepreneurship for a while and who have cultivated experience, because now being around these people, I can pull from their wealth of knowledge based on their experience, and I can bring that into my own life and into my own business. And then I can start to expand and thrive in the realm of entrepreneurship. Whereas if I'm speaking with somebody who has worked a job for a company where they don't have to look after taxes, they don't have to deal with lead generation and all of these other things that are involved in running a business, it's just not as supportive for me to speak to those people, because they don't have the knowledge and skill set, most likely, that someone who has been in the space of entrepreneurship would have. When I speak about the notion of your friends ruining your life or whatever, what I'm saying is the version of you that you wish to step into, that you're cultivating, is going to need support. We need to view life holistically, in the sense that your friends and your business life or your financial life or your health, they're all intertwined. So if you're spending time with people that don't have the same health goals as you, then it's going to be challenging for you to stay on track. Accountability is so important in my experience when it comes to health, when it comes to exercising and eating and all of these things. To have other people that are on the same trajectory that you can speak with and bounce ideas off of is super important. And you're going to really struggle to reach your goals and to actualize the vision that you have for yourself if you are not surrounding yourself with friends, with family members, or whatever it is that are going to support you. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, is something someone said, and it's very accurate in my experience, because I look back at times where I didn't really have any connections that were entrepreneurial in nature, and I felt very alone because I didn't have anybody that could relate to the financial struggles that I was having, or the uncertainty around clients, or the confusion around tax things. But once I started to connect with more people like this, it became normal that that's what we spoke about. We spoke about how we overcome our challenges. We spoke about finding solutions. We spoke about new ideas to bring to our offerings as business people. And those are simply just conversations that you're not going to have with someone that doesn't have that experience. And so in order for me to be the best entrepreneur, let's say, for example, it is so important that I'm surrounded by other people on that path. There's a huge misconception and judgment over the idea that it's your friends that are dragging you down, and so you have to let go of your toxic friends. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is the way that you are is going to vary depending on who you are spending time with, depending on what places you're going. So if you are in an environment that is doing one thing, but you're trying to do another thing, then you're more likely to adapt to the environment you're in. So if your goal is to make 100K next month, the logical thing for you to do would be to get into an environment with people that are making 100K a month already, because then you're more likely to adapt to that environment. Whereas if you're in an environment of students or people that are on a salary that's capped, you're probably not going to tap into the knowledge and skill sets and mindset required to make 100K in a month. And so the logical thing to do is to be in the group of people that are making 100K. Again, we're not saying there's a judgment toward 100K being better or worse than the other option that was mentioned. They're just simply what they are. And then the mind comes along and has its own judgments based on conditioning and projection. And we'll say, oh, well, you think you're better, or you think you're better. No, we don't need to go into any of that. You just need to focus on what you want, what you aspire to live your life like, and then find an environment that is going to be supportive in helping you to actualize that potential. That's all it is. It's not about being better. It's not about a hierarchy. It's simply identifying what it is you want and then making adjustments in your life that are going to help you achieve that. And the thing is, it is better for everybody involved when we let go of certain situations and people and circumstances that aren't serving us. Again, there's always potential for there to be judgment around this. You know, the idea of like, oh, you think you're better than this situation, so you're going to that situation. It's not that at all. It's not about just eradicating people from your life and your story. They can still be there, and a lot of them probably will be. It's about noticing how your environment is suiting your objectives. And as soon as you get the environment right, then you'll start to see progress. And then when you get that progress, you'll have more energy, more resources, and then you will be able to have more, let's say, downtime for that kind of generic just hanging out and chilling. So it's not like you need to axe half of your life and then find a new half. It's just about inviting in more of what's going to support you for your current endeavors, and then being aware that some of the old people or patterns in your life aren't serving the new version of you that you're birthing. Nobody is better or worse than another person. No situation is better or worse. But you're going to have your preferences, and you need to act in accordance with those preferences. There's this idea that you need to be loyal to friends or family or whoever, and like, oh, I did all of this for you so long ago, and now you're we don't need to go down that path of judgment, because ultimately when you actualize and you step into your vision and make it manifest in the real world, then you will be more expanded and be more open to all interactions around you. Because as we expand ourselves, we expand our awareness, we expand our capacity to connect on a deeper level than before. My friend, you are worthy of the vision that you have in your mind's eye, and you are welcome to step into it. And nobody needs to suffer. In fact, when we refuse to step into that vision that we hold for ourselves, that is suffering, because we're remaining constricted, even though expansion is on the horizon. The intention of this message and my invitation to you is to perhaps look at your life and your day and your past week maybe and see, were there any times where you felt you were being dragged and pulled back? Maybe you noticed at one point that you had a decline in energy, and maybe you could have a look and see what happened prior to that shift in your mood. If I can just catch myself and then make a decision to do something else that might be slightly more nourishing than, for example, going for a scroll on social media, it's quite likely that I'll feel rejuvenated after that. But also you're breaking down this habitual tendency to seek a dopamine hit or a sort of temporary comfort that ultimately leads to declined mental health over time. And it's certainly challenging. Like, it's not easy as it might seem to just stop doing something. I'm sure you know, I often stop things for a certain amount of time, can even be months or years, and then I'll start doing it again, and it's like I had been doing it the whole time. It's just so quick to grab you back, but we're strong, and we are the master of our mind and body. And we should exercise that capability more often. Unconsciously, we find comfort in distress almost. We find joy in the distraction that bad news and negativity often offers. It's often how we connect with a lot of people. I know that's how it's been for me. Like, so many of my conversations up until I became conscious and aware of the way I interacted with people in the world were negative, and that's how I would connect with people. And I realized this from time to time, but yesterday in particular, I realized that there were certain triggers throughout my day that were significantly contributing to this negative vibe, I suppose, that was perpetuating itself. There were too many rabbit holes, there was too much Instagram scrolling, there was too much checking the price of cryptocurrency. I'm sure you can relate to some of these, and if not, then I'm sure you have your own versions, but these are my guilty pleasures that ultimately feed and perpetuate poor mental health for me anyway. And it's tough, you know, in the middle of the day when you're bored or whatever, and you think, oh, I'll just go and have a quick look at this or a quick look at that, and then before you know it, you've had a very long look at it. It hasn't been quick at all, and then it just brings down your whole energy level. Your whole vibe just is depleted at that point, and it's not of service to us, and it's not putting us in a position where we can be of service to other people. So last night I made the decision, okay, today I'm going to identify what those negative influences were, and I'm going to remove them from the day. And rather than using these methods of escape, I will instead do what it is that I would actually like to do. And for me, the answer was to create things. So I was working on a song today, and I was working on a couple of other videos, and then I thought, well, I may as well talk about this whole process. So that's what this video is. It's raining right now. It's quite nice to have rain in the summer, which isn't uncommon here at all, but it's a nice temperature. I like the rain and I like warmth at the same time. It's kind of subtropical almost. So have a look at your day, have a look at your week, and maybe journal on it. Keep a diary for a week or a day to see what it is you're feeling at what moment, and noticing what it was that caused the shift. And maybe there wasn't any particular cause, and that's fine, but you can discern whether or not there are certain things that you're doing throughout your day that aren't really benefiting you. And if that's the case, then you can perhaps make some sort of adjustment and see how that might improve the quality of your existence. We don't need to act on temptation all of the time. In fact, a lot of the time it would probably be more beneficial to us if we didn't. It's good to experiment with our day and with our habits and with life, because it's there to be enjoyed and experienced. And maybe sometimes you're experiencing one thing a little too often and it just becomes familiar, and then you don't end up changing, and it's been like 10 years. And then maybe one day you stumble upon a video like this and you think to yourself, oh, that thing that I've been doing every single day for the last decade, maybe if I do it differently, my day might go a bit different, and maybe it might even go better. Maybe it'll go worse, in which case, back to the drawing board, try something different. There's no shortage of things that we can try here on Earth, so enjoy. Have a great day, night, week, life. It's a first world problem to have money, to have career, to have the things you need, and still be sad, still be confused. One day, hopefully, we'll all have first world problems. And then I wondered, what are we going to say? Are we going to say, oh, first world problems? It's like, yeah, okay, so we're all here and we're still having problems. So what are we going to do then? We live in a world where we aspire to have things and to do things and achieve goals, supposedly because the achievement of those things will result in something that we call happiness or fulfillment. Over here in the first world, when we have the privileges of internet and, contemplating our, deep-seated purpose to be here on this planet, and we're not struggling, with food and water and whatnot, we get these things, and then we still have questions, and we still have crises, and we still have pain and misery and suffering. And that's all very valid. One of the biggest points of pushback that I get for the content that I make is people commenting things like, oh, first world problems, or oh, it'd be nice to have your white male problems, stuff like this. And it's pointing to something that I think we overlook, which is the fundamental relativity of challenges or problems. You can have first world problems, which I do, that's where I live, and they can still be important and matter, and that doesn't need to take away from other problems that are happening elsewhere. Because ultimately, if me not looking after my challenges and problems isn't going to help other people elsewhere with, what we could consider more important challenges, that's, whatever, that's a different conversation. But it seems that there's this shame around having first world problems. I recall when I was raised that, and often you would hear things like, oh, you should be grateful for that, there's people starving elsewhere. Or, oh, well, you should be happy because, you have the opportunity to do this thing. And while that privilege is valid and it's, it's worth noting, it's not really honoring the challenge that that person is having where they're at. We need to look at where we're at and move from where we're at. There's not much benefit to ridiculing and condemning ourselves for being in a position of privilege, because ultimately it's just suppressing the emotion that we're feeling anyway. I think when we say, oh, you should just be grateful, we're kind of encouraging people to just push their feelings under the carpet. And that's not really sustainable. This shame and suppression of the way that we feel is only perpetuating it. It's only perpetuating this disconnect from our feelings, from our true self. Because when we suppress that, it comes out in a different way. Often in not such a positive way. If I'm angry and you're telling me that I shouldn't be angry, now what do I feel? Well, now I feel shame toward the anger. And so I suppress that until I find a space where it's safe to be angry. And some people never find that space. And that's why really harsh and terrible things happen, because the rug, the carpet is just so overwhelmed with stuff underneath it, and it can't hide anymore. And then it explodes, and then we have war, or we have murder, or we have just not nice words being said to people. There's no doubt that this world is unfair. There's no doubt that there's varying degrees of problems. But when we have a hierarchy of problems and say that the first world ones don't matter until the third world ones or whatever other ones are solved, I don't think that's speeding up the process. Because the more we honor ourselves, wherever we are, whatever your problems are, the more peace that you can find, the more calm, the more clarity, the more you can act in accordance with your authentic values, which is going to ultimately provide an experience of abundance for you and the people around you. And it's through doing that, through cultivating this open, expansive nature, that we can really tune in and be of service. And being of service is what's going to solve the challenges that we have in the world. When we realize what the challenges are with a clear mind and clear heart, then we can take action that's actually going to be beneficial for the cause. Because this suppression and this weird thing that we do where we shame people because we're jealous of them, or we're angry about something happening over there, or we just don't even know what to do, so all we can do is lash out and perpetuate abuse. If frustration is what you feel, take that frustration and do something with it. Something constructive, something artistic, something actionable, something, just meditate even. Because that feeling, once it arises, you have an opportunity to either perpetuate it by getting angry at the next person, or you can ground it, or you can transmute it. Because it's a first world problem to have money, to have career, to have the things you need, and still be sad, still be confused. And when we go to people and we say, oh, well, there's people worse off, is that really helping the person? Maybe a little bit. You know, gratitude, it's a great practice. But some things, you can't just gratitude them away. Sometimes you need to just feel feelings. Sometimes you need to make changes. Feelings are feelings, and that doesn't really change so much from one human to the next, but the circumstances that prompt those feelings does. But ultimately, we're all having our experience, and it's all relative, and it's all deserving of attention and honor. And it's really confusing to hear people condemn and ridicule your experience. And when we shame the experience, we're not helping it. We're just causing it to perpetuate. You can be privileged and you can still be miserable. We all know that money doesn't buy happiness. And then you might say, well, it's easy for you to say, you know, you have this or you have that. And it's like, well, it's easy to say, but also it's kind of true. And the more you experience in life and the more things you achieve, the more you realize that when you achieve the thing, you're just looking for the next thing. You're perpetually looking for something until you get to the root of the challenge, which is within you, and it's not really so much to do with the external. Of course, you know, there's the challenges of poverty and lack of clean water and these things. Like, those are fundamental needs that are not met for a lot of people, and that's unfortunate. And it's also a separate issue. Suppressing your own desires and your own feelings is not, it's not benefiting that situation. I don't know what more to say, really. This is just a validating expression from my heart to yours. You're allowed to have first world problems. It doesn't make you a bad person. Take care. When I was around 14 years old, I was texting a girl for the first time ever. And we had agreed that we were gonna meet up. And I was so excited to meet up with a girl because I'd never met up with a girl before. And this was something that only existed in my imagination. It was the thing of movies. It was a dream. But it seemed as though the dream was soon to become a reality. And so we're texting, we've set the time, the location. And in my mind, I can't actually fathom this coming to be a real thing because it's never happened before. And in my mind, I'm thinking, she's gonna cancel. Like 2 days out, still hasn't canceled. Like, she's gonna cancel. Checking my phone all the time, waiting for that cancellation. I am expecting she's gonna cancel. And then probably 24 hours before, check my phone, she's cancelled. The thing that I was worried about is exactly what happened. And whilst I was worrying about it, I was already experiencing the pain of being cancelled on. Now, for many, many more years, this would be a common occurrence, but not just with girls that I was interested in. It happened with all sorts of people. It happened with friends. It happened with prospective friends, people that I met that I hoped we would meet again. We would have a plan. And in my mind, I expected that plan was going to fall through. I was so worried about every single little arrangement in my social life. And in most cases, this is exactly how it manifested. It was the same with working situations. If I wanted to get a job, I felt like I wasn't going to get the job. And sure enough, I didn't get the job. Sorry, we've gone another way. Sorry, there was another candidate. Sorry, it was such a hard decision, but we haven't picked you. Being cancelled on and not getting what I wanted and only getting what I feared was a regular occurrence for me. And I was really terrified that my future would just consist of being bailed on, being cancelled on. And it's really scary to contemplate living in a world where you can't count on anybody. You can't count on anything. My assumption was that I was alone and that I didn't have any support. Unfavorable outcomes were the more likely outcome. Fast forward, I'm 22, 23, 24, something like that, early 20s. And I'm going on a date. That pattern, checking my phone right up to the last minute, like just to make sure they don't cancel. If they haven't cancelled and it's 30 minutes to go, I'm shocked. It blows my mind. Now on this occasion, I decided I'm not going to check to see if they cancelled. I'm just going to go. So I get on my bike, it's pitch black, I'm cycling. And I'm like, wow, it's so dark. I didn't realize how dark it is when there's no street lights. So I'm cruising and then I get there. Still haven't checked my phone. I'm at the front door, haven't checked my phone. Thinking to myself, there could be a message on here that says, don't come actually. I don't want to see you. But I just knock on the door. Got my high vis vest because it was dark. And be safe, be seen, as they say. And the door opens and all is well. I'm welcome. Now the difference between this occasion and all of the other occasions for the majority of my teenage years and the earliest of my 20s is that I felt that feeling, that worry come up again of like, oh, what if this person's cancelled? And instead of checking my phone for validation to make that feeling go away, I just took the feeling with me. I knew when I got on that bike that there was a probability that there was a cancellation message waiting. But rather than wait for that validating text saying, oh yeah, come, see you soon, I just thought, well, why don't I just go and deal with whatever's there? And everything was fine. And I noticed that over the years, as I started to practice this more and more, as I started to feel the worry and those sensations and not act in order to get away from those feelings. You see, usually what we do is we send an email and then we check our inbox every 2 seconds to see if there's a positive response or not. Because when there's a positive response, then we can stop worrying. Or we don't ask for what we want, be it like a pay rise or the amount of money that you want for your services that you're offering to your clients. You don't ask for what you want because you're afraid that if you ask for what you want, that the person will say, no, I don't want your service. I don't want you. And so we play a smaller version of ourselves and we say, oh, I'll do it for this much, but really we don't want to do it for that much. And now we enter into that working relationship or that agreement with resentment because we haven't been truly authentic, because we were worried and afraid that if we were, that we would be rejected. When I was constantly checking for these text messages, I was playing small because I wasn't realizing that I was good enough as I was and I didn't need extra validation. And even if I got to the door and the person said, no, we don't want you, I could still say, oh, well, that's okay. I can just go and be myself somewhere by myself, because my worth is not determined by whether or not I'm accepted in this door or not. You see, when we're fearful of something, we're anticipating the worst case scenario. And some people might say, oh, don't worry about it. It hasn't even happened yet. But that doesn't really give me reassurance, because it can happen. Like, there's a 50-50 chance. When you say, oh, don't worry about it, that's not really helping me, because I know it's possible that it might happen. And if it does happen, then what am I to do? What I really want to hear is that even if that thing that you fear happens, you can still weather that storm. You can excel through that experience. You see, in going to the date without getting last minute confirmation, I said to myself, I'm going to go, and even if it doesn't work out, I'm still going to be kind to myself and honor my worth in that scenario, whatever happens. And if that happens, we'll deal with it then. But right now, I've made an agreement with this person. We're going to have a meeting. I'm going to go and I'm going to meet them. And let's take it from there. When we're fearful, we're expecting the worst. When we're excited, we're expecting the best. There's some people you might, be excited to see because you trust the person, you trust the relationship that you have with them. And then there's people that maybe you're fearful or nervous or anxious about seeing them because you don't think they will see you. The difference between fear and excitement is that feeling. Do you feel contracted or do you feel expanded? Affirmations I use for myself when working with different clients, I might think, oh, I'm nervous that I'm not going to provide the best service for this person. I'm nervous I'm not going to be able to organize everything effectively. I'm nervous I'm not going to be able to give value to them, right? That's fear. That's fear speaking. If excitement was speaking, though, in this place, we would say, I'm excited to improve the quality of this person's life. I'm excited for their business to be more profitable as a result of the services that I offer them. I am excited to connect with this person and inspire them in a positive way that expands their life and the lives of all of those around them. And on the topic of affirmations, I have a guided meditation. It's free. It's in the description. Hundreds of people have been listening to it. Even people that say they don't like meditations listen to it and they like it. So give it a go. Unless you can be totally mindful and zen in the moment all the time, which I don't think that's the path for you or me, because look, we're here on the internet. We have businesses, we have jobs, we have society, okay? So let's assume you're not going to just be mindful in the present moment all the time. And let's take a more practical approach. You're going to be excited or you're going to be fearful. Now, it's not always going to be the case that you're just going to be excited about stuff, right? So here's the alternative. You can be fearful and you can still do the thing. Do the thing scared. So that looks like, I want to send an email to somebody about a quote for, I don't know, a video production job. Let's say I'm doing that. And I want €1,000. So I want X amount of money, but I know that that might be too much for them, but it's what I want. And I'm scared that if I express what I want, that this person will say no, and then I'll lose the business, or maybe they'll judge me, they'll call me a rip-off artist or whatever. And so what can I do? I can either play small, succumb to the fear, and just not express myself authentically and say, oh, I'll do it for 500. Okay, you could do that. But I really want 1,000. So here's what I do. I say, I'm scared to ask for 1,000 euros because I know that this might be a lot for them. And they might say no, and I might lose the business. They might even tell their friends that I tried to scam them. And knowing all of that as a possibility, I'm going to honor that, and I'm still going to ask for 1,000 euros. And it's scary. Type the email. 1,000 euros, please. Send. So here's the thing. Whether they agree to pay you 1,000 euros or not, doesn't matter. Just because you ask for 1,000 euros doesn't mean you're going to get 1,000 euros, but you might. And if you don't ask, you certainly won't. Now, the goal here isn't to get 1,000 euros. That's not the point. The point is to express yourself, to ask for what you want, and then be willing and ready to receive it without needing so much clarification every second of every day. Your worries are just a reflection of what it is that you're expecting on a regular basis. And what we expect is usually based on what we've received in the past. All you need to do is change your expectation. How do you change your expectation? Slowly but surely. I'm excited to meet new people today. I'm excited for love to enter my life. I'm excited to learn and to grow and to share my ideas with the world for the benefit of all. We shift from I'm afraid this won't work to I'm excited for the possibility. Change your point of focus. Spend time with people that are doing the same thing. Research and study and engage with people that have lived this, that have gone through transformations like this. And most importantly, be kind to yourself. Thank you for being here. I believe in you. If you enjoyed this video, check this one out next. It's probably going to be very valuable for you as well. Have a great day. This is definitely one of the many moments where all I want is the predictability of being in a Starbucks where you know everything's just going to be the same way it always is. This is me. I'm somewhere in the neighborhood of 20, young, dumb, and full of resentment for the place I was born and raised, so I did everything I could to get away from it. I traveled to the US, Canada, and then on to Europe and the Middle East, hoping that I could find someone, something, or somewhere that would give me enough of a reason to never ever have to go back to the boring place that I begrudgingly called home. You might be surprised to hear that I didn't actually find any of those things, and in fact, it was kind of boring. I spent the first half of my 20s in a depressive cycle where I would be living at home and then I would decide to go somewhere else across the world, and I would spend some time there and I would have some momentary relief as I was in a new area with new people and new things to do. And then eventually, due to money or visa restrictions, I had to come back to where I'm from, and then I would get depressed again. I would resent where I was from, I would resent the people, I would blame everything outside of me as to what was going on inside of me, and then I would go away again, and then this cycle kept on going and going and going. Now, for the first part of this journey, I was in college, so I would be going away and then coming back for college, and then when I finished college, I all of a sudden was able to go but not need to come back necessarily for college. And so I went away again, and on that particular occasion I went from here to Canada, and I spent the whole year prior super excited to get the hell out of where I was, because I felt, or I believed, that I was going to be happy in this other place. And so I got in the plane and I flew off to Vancouver, and I remember I was flying into Vancouver, I could see the city, and I had this feeling of absolute dread sink over me, and I was so confused because this has been what I wanted all year. I had been so depressed all year. All I wanted was to get the hell out of where I was, and now I was doing that, and I was about to enter what I thought was going to be my salvation, and ultimately I felt like a big pile of poo. This was so confusing because I had believed that my happiness and my joy existed elsewhere, but then I got to the place and I was feeling even worse than I was. Now, eventually that feeling did subside and I started to feel okay again. But, there was a transition period, which I guess you could, consider normal. And so I lived out there for a while, and things were pretty good. Overall, I felt better than I ever felt when I was at home. But then inevitably I needed to go home again because my visa ran out. And I learned a load of stuff there and met a load of beautiful people, and I had a really great time. And then I got home again, and I was like feeling this bored, depressed state of being once again. And it really upset me to believe that my happiness and my fulfillment was dependent on the physical location that I was in. And the fact that my passport was the sole reason that I was miserable. And yet again, after being home for maybe a year or so, I was in this hole and I had to get out. And so I went this time to Eastern Europe and then the Middle East eventually. And I was even more depressed when I got there because I didn't have the foundation, like the stability that came with living at my parents' house, which is where I was at the time. And just, knowing where everything is, knowing what shop to go to for what. And all of a sudden I'm still depressed. I'm on the road. There's nobody really that I can turn to. And there's just this sense of directionlessness. But it seemed that despite my depression and frustration with where I was from, even going abroad didn't seem to be the remedy that I was seeking. And then that introduced the potential reality that maybe I was boring.
I'm bored. Only boring people are bored.
See, when I reflect on my time spent depressed and miserable at home, it was not so much because it was an unfulfilling place to be, but it was because I believed it was an unfulfilling place to be. I thought, and I was so confident that it was the reason for my misery. And I thought, and I was so confident that elsewhere was the solution to my misery. But through trial and error, I found that I was actually the source of my misery. I was the reason I was grumpy. I was the reason I was bored. I was the reason I was angry and lacking fulfillment and purpose in my life. A lot of people swear by travel as a method to find happiness and peace and relieve stress in your life, and I totally understand where they're coming from. I've gotten a lot of benefit from traveling, but it's not really what I expected it to be. What I learned from traveling was what I was missing within me. I was able to loosen up a little bit because where I'm from, I act a certain way. It's not always effortless for me to be my authentic self here because I was born here, I was raised here. The people that I went to school with live here. My parents are here. I have all of these subconscious programs about how I'm supposed to perform as a person in the world on these streets. But if I go across the sea to a different country where nobody knows me, then all of a sudden I'm free to be a different version of me. And that's where freedom lies. It's in letting go of the identity, because the identity is the thing that shapes us. It's the thing that shapes you, it shapes me, and it's causing us to act in ways that maybe isn't truly in alignment with our actual desire. Believe me, if you can be grumpy where you are right now, you can be grumpy in the Bahamas, in the Caribbean, in Ibiza, whatever country you aspire to go to, wherever you think is your mecca, wherever you think is going to solve the issues that you perceive you have, they might help you. But if you go there expecting everything to change just because you went there, you might be mistaken. I was. You see, it wasn't moving that changed me. It was me realizing that I needed to change and then making choices that changed me. Because the choices that you make and the expectations that you have about any place, about your life, about your family, about your friends, about your job, about anything in this world, those expectations are most likely going to be met. And if you want a different outcome, you need a different expectation. So if you're expecting to be bored at home, you're going to be bored at home. I was bored at home for so many years until I decided, no, I want to change my relationship to this land. I want to change my relationship to these people. I want to change my relationship to how I fit in this world, in this particular location. Where I'm sitting right now, I'm literally 10 minutes away from the home that I was raised in. And I feel more free, more powerful, more responsible than I've ever been. And I'm not blaming anybody or anything for the most part. I'm just here and I'm doing my best to create value in my life and in the lives of others, to create art to share and to inspire people, because ultimately those are the things that give me a sense of purpose. And that's what allows me to wake up feeling invigorated and excited to create something that is hopefully going to impact you in a positive way. And even if it doesn't, I can still say that I put my best foot forward in creating a life for myself that I'm truly proud of, that I'm truly excited about, and hopefully allowing that to ripple through to the lives of the people that are around me. Honestly, this video was supposed to just be me talking about traveling, but all of a sudden that came out. So I'm going to leave it in here because I know that if it's true for me, it's going to resonate with somebody out there. And I'm not saying don't travel. I'm not saying that it's not a good idea, that it won't help your situation. It could. It did help me ultimately in a roundabout way that I didn't expect. But my friend, I really want to encourage you to realize that you don't need to go anywhere in order to feel peace within. You don't need to do anything or achieve anything in order to feel peace within. There is no person, there is no place, there is no job that is going to give you that peace within. They might help you in cultivating it and realizing it and seeing that it's already within you, but they will not give it to you. My friend, whatever you were looking for, I believe that you can find it. I did. Have a great day. They say that if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. Well, I bet he's having a jolly old time right now. It's possible that no one's ever told you this, but you're doing so well. I want you to know that. Because in a world as fucked as ours, where standards are skewed and love's been painted as a scarce resource, it can be hard to remember that sometimes. I know that people might disagree, and that's okay. This is for anyone who chooses to stay. I trust you have a place here and that this message serves some purpose. Sometimes you're holding on to things that you could do without, you know? Like, it's those things that are fine, but they're ready to go. Like that project you don't really care for, or the residue of romance with that person that you thought was for you, or those pants that are literally falling apart, yet you still wear them. It's scary to let them go because it's familiar. You know what to expect. And I don't blame you for holding on. I just want you to know that it's okay to let go. It's only when you let go that you're able to receive that next thing. Every now and then you'll come across something new, and it's exciting. The nectar is so sweet that it pulls you in, but that same nectar that feeds and energizes is the same that paralyzes. For if you don't pull away on time, you might find yourself stuck, and so begins to grow the pain. But don't worry, because even if you overindulge, you will heal. You always heal. Truth be told, I don't know what to make of this life most of the time. Every now and then someone or something comes in and makes everything shinier than usual. I like those moments. Not so much when the shine fades. It's weird, but it seems to happen us all, from what I've heard. It's okay to be disappointed, misunderstood, to feel unseen, to feel disliked, or even to be disliked. Of course, we'd prefer the opposite of all of those feelings, but the thing about life is we kind of need both. There's always a dance between the polarities, and when they come together, then we have this experience that we call life. Your despair is only making space for happiness, and your happiness is only providing the contrast for despair to once again grace you with its presence. I don't know where you got the idea that one or the other of those lasts forever. So far in my experience, neither of them do. There's a saying that I like to throw around, and it goes, if I had everything I wanted right now, I'd still feel the same. If I had everything I wanted right now, I would still feel this pain. And that's to say that the pain isn't because of something I have or have not done. It's not because someone is or is not here. It's just here because it is here. I know it's hard, but it's not forever. I know it's hard to look at yourself and feel okay all of the time because so often it just doesn't seem that way. Sometimes the biggest accomplishment in a day is taking a breath, and other times it's reaching the masses and causing a thought revolution of sorts. It's quite the contrast. I don't really know what's going on, to be honest. I don't know that it really matters. We're just here until we're not. And in the meantime, I've found that it's worth my while to practice love of self and others. And sometimes I do a pretty terrible job of this. But when I'm on form, that might look like smiling, going somewhere new, or saying goodbye. It changes day to day. Sometimes love hurts on the way to feeling bliss. Other times it's just like, what the hell am I doing? A friend told me recently, we're all slaying a dragon of some sort. And we could argue about who breathes the flame that burns the most, but I wonder how useful that is. I'm not trying to take away your pain or the pain of those who have come and gone. Look how far you've come. You're not doing this alone. And the unknown is where your wildest dreams will come to be. I'm sorry it played out that way. It looked a bit different in my mind, but I'm not sorry for hurting. I'm not sorry for how I am. I wish I wasn't, but until I change, here I am. And that's not me saying that I'm not going to try change. It's just recognizing that the passing of time plays a role in this change. And bear with me as this process goes on. It's got nothing to do with any of that. However, those things are also nice. So in this video, the intention is to show you the two-step process that more or less has eradicated the majority of anger from my life. We could also include misery, self-pity, frustration in amongst the things that I have got under control in my life. It's not to say that these things don't arise. However, when they do, it's not as overwhelming as it might have been at other points, to the point where it would paralyze me and prevent me from doing anything. So let me take you a trip down memory lane very briefly. I spent the majority of my life angry and bitter and frustrated at the world, parents, at the economy, at politicians, at the country I am from, amongst many, many other things that I'm sure you can relate to. I was really reluctant to take personal responsibility. I hated working. I hated having to do things I didn't like doing. I hated the fact that there was all of these societal assumptions that you were supposed to adhere to, like going to school, going to college, you know, getting a job and all of this. And I felt like I was making decisions not for me, but for other people. And then I would regret those decisions and end up in a spiral of self-pity and frustration and blaming everybody except for me. So it was quite a disempowered state that I was living in. However, there came a point where things started to change for me. And that's what the bulk of this video is going to cover, is how I changed. And there was two steps. So the first step was to realize that there is an inevitable degree of suck in life. Life sucks sometimes. And that doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It doesn't mean that somebody else made it so. It's just life. It's warm. And while things might suck in life, that does not mean that those things that suck cannot simultaneously be helpful. Shortly, I'll give an example of how I applied that first step to my own life. But first, I want to give the second step, which is perhaps the more challenging step. But step 2 was to take bold action in the direction of something that I wanted, knowing that that would also involve the inevitable degree of suck. So now we're clear. Life sucks sometimes, and things that suck aren't necessarily unhelpful. You see, the situation that I found myself in at the time, well, one of many situations, but at the time I was living at home, my family home with my parents, which is not what I wanted. And it sucked. But also, with this framework, with step number 1, we realized that while something might suck, aka living with my parents sucked, it didn't mean that it wasn't helpful. It was helpful in the sense that I had a nice home, I had shelter, I had space to do things. It also meant that I didn't have to worry about finances as urgently as I might have if I was renting somewhere. Now, step 2 in this scenario was to realize that I wanted to be somewhere else by myself. I wanted that independence, because we all know what it's like living at home when you're an adult. You know, it's tricky. It's tricky to be yourself. It's tricky to grow and expand as an adult when you're in that family dynamic. And that's fine, you know, we all go through that. But I knew that I wanted something different. And so for me, step number 2 meant that I needed to move out. But moving out meant that I would have to pay crazy rent. It meant that I would have to find somewhere. I think there's a terrible housing crisis here, as there is in most places. And I knew all of that was going to suck. And I'd have to, you know, make more money and all these things. But life already sucked. So what would it hurt to have it suck a bit in that direction, you know? And so, you know, I got online and posted out a thingy on Instagram, and sure enough, I was blessed with a phone call a few weeks later, and there was a room for me in an apartment. And it was going to cost X amount of money, and I now needed to have that money to pay that rent every month. And so I moved along my way. Now, I was in a new situation, and it sucked. But it was more preferable for me because I woke up in my own place every day. I woke up feeling just, you know, like an adult, invigorated, fresh, like I had some more purpose. And that meant that I was feeling better and motivated to work on business stuff, to work on artistic things, to work on videos, to work on music, to work on just cultivating the ideas that I share and learn and put out into the world. It sucked having to pay most of my money toward rent and to have nothing left at the end, but the value that I was getting is what I just mentioned. It was the experience that I had in this new place. And so you might be wondering, well, how does this make one less angry? Well, here's the thing. When you realize that life sucks and that it's always going to suck, but there's also light within that suck, you stop trying to get away from the suck. You release resistance to the suck. And when you release resistance to the suck, you welcome in more of that positivity because you just know suck is going to be there. And then you're not so surprised by it anymore. And so the need for anger just disappears because the thing that you were previously angry about was the fact that life sucked or life wasn't going the way you wanted. And when we let go of all of the expectation for it to be perfect, that energy that you're putting toward fighting it can be recycled and recirculated and used for something else. So now my life sucks to some degree, but I consciously chose the suck. Doing things that you don't want to do sucks. But there's always a benefit to the thing that you're doing. Otherwise you wouldn't be doing it. A soul destroying job, probably not great for your soul short term, but long term on a soul level, you probably are expanding, but that's a different conversation. But you're getting resources from that job to, you know, invest into food, invest into accommodation, invest into camera equipment, invest into workshops or learning new things. And when we focus on what's helpful about the thing that we're doing that we don't want to do, then it's a little easier. Feels a little more light knowing that it's pertaining to a bigger vision, a bigger goal for ourselves. When I first moved home to Ireland, I didn't have any friends really. And I didn't want to live here because of that reason. But by embracing the suck of committing to live somewhere that I didn't really have any friends, it meant that I dedicated time to going places by myself, to trying new things, and eventually I started to meet friends by going to these things. And it sucked, going places when I was all nervous and anxious and not knowing any, but it was helpful at the same time, because now I've got friends that I can pick up the phone and call, and we can go swimming, we can go hiking, we can go on holiday together, we can just chat. But it's because I made that choice to embrace the suck of being a nobody, being a loner in a new place. It sucks to start a business, it sucks to start a YouTube channel, but when you embrace the suck for long enough, you're probably going to get a payoff at some point. You'll get that audience, you'll get the client base, you'll get the revenue stream, and then you'll have the flexibility. You'll have so much learning and lessons because you learn so much through this process. Embracing the suck is a prerequisite to getting what we want in this life. Because when we welcome in the suck, we also welcome in the light side of that, which is the beauty, the helpfulness, the thing that we desire. Life sucks, but you can do it. Hey man. Oh, hey man, how's it going? Good. I just wanted to let you know that you suck. What? You're a loser. You offer no value to this world. Why would you say that? I don't even know. For so many people, the biggest obstacle that we face in our lives is ourselves. Like, we find it so easy to be kind to other people for the most part, but then when it comes to ourselves, we just hate ourselves, and it's so easy to hate yourself for whatever reason. It's as though we are the most unreasonable person that we come into contact with, and it's like literally every second of every day that it happens. You can't escape the shittiness that is you. Or so you think. Okay, so for a second, just imagine someone that you think is super cool and super helpful and valuable to you. So now imagine this person comes to you and they're like, yo, I feel like I'm useless and that I have no value to give the world. And you're there, you're like, oh man, like this person brings me amazing value. Like they freaking rock. And so what would you say to them? Despite the fact that this person is feeling this way, the intrinsic value that you know is there still remains. Yes, they might be triggered into believing that they aren't a good person. Our minds tend to do these crazy things, but totally normal. All the freaking awesome people in the world think they suck because everyone thinks they suck at some point or other. Nothing wrong with sucking. Well, you don't suck, but you think you suck. There's nothing wrong with thinking that you suck. And this scenario that I'm talking about is really just a reflection of your own internal workings, in the sense that you are both the person that you value and admire, and you're also that same part of that person that is self-conscious and insecure and uncertain about the direction that they're taking. Only you're in the same body. So effectively there's two of you within this whole spacesuit that you're wearing. So in the moments where maybe things aren't working out the way that you thought, or you're feeling like a victim or unworthy, these are the moments where, rather than kicking yourself while you're down, you take a step back and you start to see, okay, are all of my needs being met here? Am I tired? Am I thirsty? Do I need to go to the bathroom? When a part of you is like, I suck, your duty as a conscious human being is to say to yourself, oh, I can see why you feel like you suck right now, and that's perfectly okay. Perhaps you would like a cup of tea. Perhaps we can go for a jog. Perhaps we'll take a shower. there is a myriad of things that you could perhaps do.
Myriad.
Myriad. Myriad.
Myriad.
I've been saying that wrong for so long. So does all of this mean that the goal in life should be to not feel as though you suck? Absolutely not. The point of all of this is that when you feel like you suck, you choose to be the friend that is like, hey man, what can I do for you? Rather than being the bully that just kicks the dude when he's already on the floor. It's like, dude, why? It's like, oh, I felt shit already, so I was just like, oh. See, when you decide to be nice to yourself, it's the difference between looking at that part of yourself that thinks that he sucks and being like, yeah, you look like you're in a crappy spot. Let me give you some more crap for that crap that you have all over your face. And then the flip side of that, which is the side that I encourage, is to be nice to yourself and be like, hey man, I can see why you feel crappy. Totally understandable. Totally respect that. Can I help you? What can I do for you? What do you need? You might be surprised to hear what it is that you need when you don't crap on yourself. And ultimately, if you're not being nice to yourself, you're just perpetuating the same pain that causes you to feel crap in the first place. And then sometimes we can fall into the trap of bullying ourselves over the fact that we can't stop bullying ourselves. In which case, you're just bullying the bully. And as we've established, we don't want to bully anybody because that just perpetuates that cycle. So, when the bully is bullying, when you're bullying the bully, it's just another opportunity to say, I can see why you're finding it difficult to be kind to yourself right now. No problem. Let's try again. And that's going to happen too. Like, this whole thing is a practice. Like, you're not just going to nail it and then be happy forever. It's not the point. The point is that you keep coming back to this mindset and this way of self-compassion and kindness toward yourself. So usually before I go to sleep at night, I like to have a look at my phone, watch some videos, browse the internet, etc. And I know it's not the best thing to do with the overstimulation before sleeping, but it's just something I like to do. And usually, I'm aware that it's not a good idea to do it, but I do it anyway because I'm a human. And sometimes I don't have the discipline to stop. But last night, just before I was about to reach for my phone, the words "back to your heart" popped into my mind. And I know it sounds kind of cheesy, return to your heart and stuff like that, but it was really prominent for me to hear that because it's a reminder that not only like before going to sleep, do I grab for the phone or whatever, but so many times throughout my day, I will have this sort of like discomfort and I'll reach for something to try and cover up and mask that discomfort. And in a way, when I do that, I'm rejecting a part of myself, or I'm rejecting that experience because I don't want to feel, the few minutes of boredom while I lie in my bed before I fall asleep. So instead, I'd rather numb that experience by looking at videos on YouTube or whatever. And yeah, that's fine short term, but long term it's not healthy, it's not helpful. And I suppose the words "back to your heart," what they mean to me or meant to me in that moment, and even like today, it was just last night I realized it, but today I've really been noticing, like, whenever I'm in an uncomfortable situation or whenever I'm about to do something out of boredom, I'm reminded, no, go back to your heart. Like, allow yourself to feel this and let go of the judgment toward this boring experience or this moment of discomfort, and see what's in it. Like, can you push through it? And in doing so, you're building stamina, going forward in your life to go through these uncomfortable situations with more resilience. Because at the end of the day, you're all you have. I mean, if everything like exploded, all the internet and stuff died tomorrow, the only thing that you would have would be yourself and your mind and your discipline and your ability to relate to your experience in a certain way. And the heart doesn't hold judgment. The heart just observes, and the heart sees, and it experiences unconditionally without a need to be one way or the other. And so I think that's what the invitation is in those words, is when you find yourself running from something or running towards something else in order to get away from something, stop for a moment and check in with yourself and just see how it feels in the body, and just like let the heart have its way with your life. Like, let life have its way with you. Like, be bored, like really commit to the boredom and experience that boredom in all of its totality, and don't try to run away onto the internet and get rid of the boredom, because I mean, sure enough, I'm sure you know yourself, there's a lot of boring stuff on the internet, but we're just kind of constantly looking for something slightly less boring within the boring. But ultimately, you're always going to end up at boredom unless you just meet the boredom head on. I mean, you're going to have to deal with it eventually. So we just delay the inevitable. Like, there is a point where you are going to experience discomfort. It's like every time we run away from an experience by distracting ourselves, we're just escaping the inevitable just for a moment or two. But at the end of the day, there's some situations that we just can't run out of. And maybe you do, you go so far down a rabbit hole with a vice, and then the vice is no longer doing what it used to do for you, and then you're finally at rock bottom and you can't go any further, and you just have no choice but to be with that pain or detriment or misery or whatever it is. And then you have no choice but to go back to your heart in that scenario. And I mean, we can't escape that. Like, we can't escape life. We can't escape experience. Like, life is going to do what it does to us, and you can try your best to run away from it, but at the end of the day, it's always going to catch up to you. And so, I mean, if you're here, I'm assuming you've got a relative amount of comfort in terms of the physical and basic needs being met with shelter and food and obviously an internet connection and stuff like that. But if we can't embrace discomfort, from our homes in the Western world or wherever you might be, it really doesn't say much for like what our capabilities might be if we were in like a survival situation, or not that I anticipate anything like that, but it's just humbling to realize that what we run from nowadays, it's in the mind, and it's just our mind running from other things within the mind. The mind is running from things that the mind has created. So like, we literally have created these obstacles, and then we're running away from them only to create more, because that's just what we do. Whereas the heart's just like, yo, chill, just be here, this is fine, we can do it. Sit, connect in with your breath or your body or whatever way helps you ground, because that's what we're doing, is moving from this mind, this analytical masculine area, to the more flowy, creative, just kind of see where it takes you, and there's no shame in that, although I think that collectively there might be some sort of stigma or some sort of collective shame toward experiencing the pain and experiencing the totality of life. When these things arise, when you're in an uncomfortable situation, even if you're sitting on the toilet, I mean, everyone these days, you can't take a poo without taking your phone out, but like, just take a poo, experience the poo, see how that feels. And same, like going to sleep, experience the boredom prior to sleeping. If you're not fortunate enough to be one of those people that just falls asleep instantly when you get into bed. And there's so many other circumstances in life that we're always running away from, and yourself in your life, if you just have a quick look at your day, or even your past 10 minutes, or even probably right now, I'm sure some people watching this are running away from something, and come back to your heart. That's all you gotta do. Have a beautiful day. When we talk about discipline, we're effectively talking about our ability to consistently do something or deliver on something or, undertake a task. And if you find it difficult to maintain discipline or to have discipline, then I find it's a good idea to revert to your why. Like, why is it that you want to do the thing that you're struggling to do? If you're not doing something that you want to do, then it probably alludes to the truth that you don't believe you are the type of person that does a certain thing. For example, if you want to study something and become an expert on a certain field, discipline is going to be required in order for you to get that knowledge and experience in order to be the expert. But if you're lacking the discipline to do it, it's most likely because you don't believe at this point in time that you are capable of being that version of yourself. And it's only through discipline that we change everything about ourselves through the action. And without the discipline, it's quite likely that you're going to remain where you are, because the discipline is what's going to take you from where you are to this future version of yourself. It's very easy to, push back tasks or to say, oh, I'll do it at this point in time in my life, or, later on in the week or whatever. Or maybe, when I've achieved this, then I'll start doing it every day, because right now I don't need to do it every day because I haven't achieved that. But ironically, in doing it every day, it's going to bring you to the place where you have achieved said thing. So discipline is what moves you from A to B. It's not that you wait till you get to B before you have discipline. That's not how it works. And so with that in mind, how can we improve our discipline? How can we be more disciplined on a daily basis? And something that I've found to be beneficial in contributing to the cause is, first of all, know what it is that you want to be disciplined at. I'm going to give a silly example because it's very relevant for me, but flossing my teeth. I'm very inconsistent with flossing. Now, I've committed to flossing, and I say I'll floss each evening. And so evening comes around, I'm about to go to bed, brush my teeth, blah, blah, blah. And I just really don't want to do the flossing. Like, I've brushed the teeth and then I think to myself, oh, flossing. Well, I'll just do it tomorrow. Or, oh, I did it yesterday, so I don't need to do it today. But it's in recognizing these little excuses that we're making for ourselves in order to avoid the discipline. It's when you recognize those excuses, you see them, and then despite those excuses, you maintain your focus and you decide to be disciplined in that task anyway. That's how we actually live a life of discipline. And it's a really simple thing. It's a split-second decision where you say to yourself, okay, right, I really don't want to do this right now, but I have made this commitment to myself. And it's about keeping promises to yourself and trusting yourself. Because if you're going to break your promises to yourself, then you're not accountable. You're not considering yourself worthy of these things that you've committed to. If you want to have a healthy body, you need to make commitments that are going to contribute to the health of your body. And each time that you're presented an option, or you want to avoid the option that is going to contribute to the health of your body, that's where discipline comes in. You need to, in that moment, remember what your commitment was
and then using discipline, remembering that vision that you had at the time that you made the commitment. And so in this moment, I'm going to be disciplined and I'm going to adhere to my commitment. And the more that you live a disciplined life, the easier the tasks become. So what required discipline last year might just be a habit this year. For example, I've meditated daily for about 4 years now. And at the beginning that was really difficult, but now it's actually just an extension of my, I suppose, bodily functions, you could say. Like, I'll get up, I'll brush my teeth, I'll pee, and then I'll meditate, and that's just it. You know, they kind of all stacked upon one another. So discipline, you know, it's not even something that requires such a valiant effort for the entirety of our lives with regards to specific tasks, but it's often just getting through that phase, you know, the initial getting into a practice that can be the most challenging part. But with your why in mind, you know, the reasoning behind your commitments to yourself, that makes having the discipline to complete tasks, to adhere to commitments, to honor your own promises a lot easier. So when the time comes to do that thing that you told yourself you were going to do, be it on a daily basis, a weekly basis, or whatever, remember the why in the first place. Like, why did you decide that it would be a good idea for you to do this thing? And if it was a pure intention in the beginning, discipline in this moment is going to allow you to nurture and honor that initial decision and bring more health, prosperity, whatever it is, into your life from that point on. Have a great day.
I just got a message from Jeff. He's invited us over for dinner. Do you want to go? No. Last time I went to Jeff's house, I got 4 entities and it cost 4 weeks of my life and 500 euros for my shaman to get rid of them. Hey there, friend. You're very welcome to this video. My name is David, and today I'm going to be talking about entities and low vibes and energy vampires and any other thing that you might be afraid of as somebody who has stepped onto a path of awakening or the path of, you know, the spiritual journey. A lot of the time when people get involved with personal growth or spirituality or whatever, new age stuff, people start to become aware of these concepts of dark forces and energy that has a negative agenda and all of this, and they then make it their mission to avoid these things at all costs. So you might hear something like, oh, that person's such an energy vampire, don't hang out with them, or that person has entities, or, you know, this person has this dark agenda and they're siphoning energy from over here in order to fuel it, so stay away from them and don't do this or don't do that. All of those things are rooted in the vibration of fear, which you could say is a low vibration. That's not a bad thing. It's not bad to be in a low vibration, nor is it good to be in what we could call a high vibration. The only difference between the two is that in a lower vibratory state, you don't feel safe in the world, and so you believe that the world is a dangerous place, and so you act in a way that mirrors that. So if I believe the world is a dangerous place, that means I am in a scarcity mindset, which means I don't believe that abundance is everywhere, which might mean I rob a bank. It might mean I steal something from my partner without letting them know about it, right? These are all done from a space of fear. Whereas we could do those exact same things from a place of abundance if we were to say, ask our partner, is it okay if I can have this? Rather than robbing a bank, we could perhaps, let's now look at what potential welfare opportunities there might be for you. So now that we have a basic understanding of low vibration states of being versus higher vibration states of being. Let's look at entities and energy vampires and all of this kind of stuff. So when someone says, oh, he's an energy vampire, there's a bit of a dichotomy there, because nobody can take your energy except for you. And by that I mean, if you allow somebody to take your energy, then yeah, you could say they're an energy vampire. But honestly, they're not taking it. You're willingly giving it. What do I mean by that? You and you alone choose whether or not you give your energy to one being or the next. By saying they took it from me, you are in what we could call a low vibratory state, saying that you don't have free will, that you don't have the ability to uphold a boundary. Why would you not uphold a boundary? Possibly because you have a scarcity mindset that says, if I do this, so if I tell this energy vampire, I don't want to hang out with you, I'm afraid they might bitch about me to their friends, or that I won't have any friends because my only friend is this one friend that I don't really like and that I think is an energy vampire. Same thing with entities. If you believe that there is an entity that can take away your energy, that is a scarcity mindset around your own sovereignty. Because if you believe that an entity has the power to just come in and with a spoon eat your energy, that is a limiting belief. You are not recognizing the sovereign being that you are. So if you are afraid that something might happen, you're going to experience a mirror of that in your reality. That's how this world works. What we believe, we project onto what we see. If you believe an entity can take all of your energy, or that an energy vampire can eat your energy for dinner, you might experience something that resembles that. But the way that I would reframe that is, I have poor boundaries. I don't believe I'm a strong, sovereign, powerful being. And so this person or this entity has gone and taken my energy. You gave the energy. This can be a tough pill to swallow, because it means that you need to take radical personal responsibility. You need to realize that it is you and you alone that has the power to regulate or dysregulate this body of yours, your nervous system. Another example, let's look at the dark agendas of the world. People say things like, oh, there's a sinister agenda. To me, this sinister agenda is merely a manifestation of scarcity mindset or lower vibratory states of being. People would not harm other people if they were in a higher vibration. If they were in a mindset of abundance, there is enough for everybody, love is everywhere. People that have that sort of mindset and that frequency don't start wars. They don't steal from people. Now, if you are going through life saying there is this dark agenda that needs to be taken down, what you are saying is, if this dark agenda doesn't get taken down, I can't be safe. That is you in a low vibration, scarcity mindset saying, I'm not safe unless this happens. I need this to happen in order to be safe. That is disempowering. That is you outsourcing your own joy, your own sovereignty, your own abundance to external conditions that need to line up in your mind in order for you to feel safe, in order for you to feel loved and abundant. You need to let go of everything that's happening on the outside and recognize that these states that you're seeking, when you're trying to crush the entities or crush the world agendas or sage away all the entities, you are reinforcing that you are not safe as you are. And that is a fallacy. You and you alone have the ability to feel joy, to feel peace in this moment with whatever's going on. That's not to say that there aren't unfortunate circumstances happening in the world. That's clearly happening. But to say that the unfortunate circumstances need to stop right now in order for me to feel a sense of peace or love or joy, that is disempowering, it is unnecessary, and it's not helpful, because it's the same frequency that causes war and theft and anything else that we're seeing in the world right now. My friend, you are a powerful, powerful being. And I encourage you to contemplate what I've offered here today. Thank you for being here. If you enjoyed the video, could you leave a comment and let me know what you think? Even if you didn't like it, let me know what your thoughts are about this. Have a great day and take care of yourself. This might not be what you want to hear, and I don't really want to say it. Marketing teams would tell me it's an awful idea. So this won't be a case of making a finely polished and algorithmically optimized piece of content, because I just can't do that right now. I feel like the leaf blowing on my driveway, or the branches swaying in the gale, struggling to stay anchored, keeping a hold of their foundation, only to be continuously annihilated and influenced by their environment. The winds are picking up, both outside and internally. Now is the chance to see how sturdy those old foundations are. I find certain seasons are easier to navigate. When there's more light outside, it breeds more light inside me. But now the clocks have turned and my clothes take days to dry inside. It's that time of year where it's not quite chilly enough to warrant the heating, but without it they'll pick up that weird smell and I'll have to wash them all over again. It seems I've only risen and my body clock peaked by the time the sun sets on the outside. I almost forgot about the winter for a second. Now that the light is fading, it's more noticeable than ever that afternoons are lost to lust, comparison, and whatever else is on your list of self-destructive tendencies. It's been a while since I felt the urge to run away, and while I know that's not the answer, right now I can't help but contemplate where I could go. I'm wondering if this could be easier than it seems to be. Actually, that's a lie. I know it could. I just always want more. I disrespect this moment, arguing for its potential rather than accepting what it's presenting me. This book I'm reading tells me, you have a right to your actions, but never to your actions' fruits. And I agree, but still. I've been learning in real time that no matter how close I get to the feeling that I think I want, it's always just around the corner. It's sort of like a dream where you're betrayed by a loved one, except I've been awake the whole time. I just feel so overwhelmed. I'm giving so much, yet I'm not taking the time to receive. I keep looking for what it is that's coming my way, and that's the very thing that stops me from seeing it. I get up early hoping to be productive, yet that's the very thing that feeds my exhaustion, rendering me useless. I travel far and wide in search of something. Love, connection, excitement, adventure, but I always end up in the same place. At the end of the day, at the end of the trip, it's just me. I think I need to turn off. I think I need to rest, but I can't because my mind says, well then how will I support myself? I know I'm appreciated, but that doesn't make me feel safe. I'm an artist and I don't know how to express myself. I'm afraid I'll do it wrong. I've been brainwashed into thinking there's a way I need to say things, that my outcomes are the result of right action. Is that true? I think it's false. I want to love and play, to be so far away with no one for miles, no email, no needs, no disease, just ease. I'm scared that I'm not enough and that I'll never be enough. I don't know. I'm in a cafe right now. I'm supposed to be coming up with action steps for the business, yet here I sit trying to put these feelings to words to try and move it or something. I don't know. I'm just exhausted. How many times have I said that? I don't want to do anything, but I want everything. I want this pain to leave. I want to be at ease. We're all lost and suffering. Some find refuge in pretending they know the answers. Well, let me tell you, I don't. I'm sorry if I convinced you I did. I don't think that's bad, by the way. It's just the human condition. Most people don't even consider such things, or maybe they do. I don't actually know. I'm not everyone. As a side note, do you know how sick I am of searching your name online? I'm well aware that I could just stop. It's been years since we spoke after all. But I'm human. We're still friends on Facebook, at least.
To be a human is to fight reality and lose every time. It's taking a few minutes to chill because you're cranky and you might say some things that you regret later. To be human is to have everything going right for you, but still not feel okay. It's to be really fucking angry at life just cause. It's to roam free without a care in the world, and then the next thing you remember the world and all of your cares come back. It's to chase something that you just can't seem to catch up to. It's to grieve something that never even was in the first place. To be human is to be perpetually confused, and to be human is to just forget about taking a break and just saying the thing that you do end up regretting later.
And that reminds me, I'm sorry about everything. I know I've said it before in words, in song and film. I'm sure we're both a bit sick of it at this stage. Trying to figure out, was that you on my webpage or someone else who happens to live in the same place? Turns out we have a mutual friend, by the way. It's funny, my problems seem so silly. And maybe they are. I'm not one to judge. Just kidding. I am, and I do. Having said that, I try not to insult things because more often than not, I come around to them eventually. I've found that there's usually a pretty good reason people do stuff. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. I might not agree with it, but maybe I will later. So that hurts my ego, but that's just life. Take running as an example. I used to think that was stupid. I still kind of do, but whatever. We hide beneath the statistics, accolades, and whatever else, yet we're still afraid to say hey to the person in the cafe because it's not the done thing, and the fear of rejection is triumphant over the possibility of connection. Shadows are fascinating. They move exactly like their physical counterpart. Only the shadow is cold, dark, bland. Yet, without light, the shadow fails to be, and so too does its origin. One could be seen as more beautiful than the other, but I guess that's up to you or me to decide. How do I wrap this up? I just want to be free from stats and algorithms. I want to sever the tie between my self-worth and the engagement on my socials. The amount in my accounts, the size of my drive, the walls that contain me, the thoughts that constrain me. I feel lost even though I know exactly what I want. I want love, connection, safety, belonging. I just don't know that they're in the places I've been looking. The more you put yourself out there, the more at risk you are of being disliked. Greatness cannot be birthed from a mediocre life, and success only arrives when you fail to please everybody. Instead of fighting for approval from those determined to misunderstand you, seek to connect with the few that gain from your presence here. You might think there are none. Well, maybe there aren't that you can see, which only means you best keep looking. It takes time and patience to cultivate your tribe, and it takes even more to cultivate compassion and live in the knowing that you are disliked by many, and many more will come, and that's perfectly okay. The reason that people don't like you is because you're annoying, and I don't want you to take that the wrong way. The truth is, we're all annoying to somebody. I am annoying to people watching this right now that are about to click off, and then to the rest of you that are still here, hey, maybe I'm not so annoying for you, or maybe you actually like me. But the thing is, there is a bunch of people that have already clicked off because they don't like me. There's not much I can do about that. That's because we all have different tastes, different traumas, different preferences, different ideas about what this video should have contained or not contained. And based on all of those things, we decide whether or not we enjoy something, whether or not we like something. So when we look at it that way, if someone doesn't like you, it's not even that they dislike you. It's just they didn't get the desired experience that they wanted from you. But then simultaneously, some people are still here. You're still here. So if you're still here, it's because you do be getting the desired experience out of watching this. And so it's possible that regardless of who you are and how you are, you can have people both disliking you and liking you at the same time. In a sense, somebody disliking you is really a self-centered reaction, which is fine. Like, you didn't give them what they wanted out of life, and so they've left and gone somewhere else to find what they hopefully want in life. It might be a hard fact to deal with, but a lot of people wake up and in the morning, they just are looking for people to disagree with. They're looking for situations, circumstances to project their pain onto. There's not really much that you can do about it on a broad scheme. In a narrow scheme, you could make sure you tick all of the boxes for that person, but then you're going to be annoying somebody else at the same time. No matter what emojis or letters or flags or virtue signals that you put in your Instagram bio or on your dating profile or whatever, if you're pleasing someone, you're going to be pissing off somebody else. In supporting one ideology, you're going to be pushing another up against the wall, and that's where we have the whole conflict, dislike, like, preference, whatever. We all know that statement. It's something like, I don't know the key to success, but I know the key to failure is trying to please everybody. If you try to please everybody, you're doomed. You are literally doomed. It's a lot more sustainable and realistic and enjoyable to please some people. And ideally, you're pleasing them not from a place of, oh, I want to please you, but you're just being yourself and you're having your values and your virtues. Then that just aligns you with other people, and hopefully you have more things in common, and that's how you cultivate friendships and community and all that good stuff. And there will be communities and friendships and people that hate your friends and your community and you, and that's just life. I think ultimately whether we like or dislike something comes down to our understanding of the thing. If we dislike it, it's usually a reaction based on our lack of understanding. It's a lot easier to look at something we don't like and say, oh, that's stupid, you're on the wrong side, because to actually understand and cultivate compassion could take a long time. Like, you're rewiring your brain to remove these instincts and these beliefs and reactions and assumptions and all of these things that we have towards everything that's happening in the world. And it's all based on our conditioning and the things that were implanted in us as we were growing up. I do believe that if we all cultivated compassion, we wouldn't have likes or dislikes anymore, because we would actually understand the nature of everything and why everything is being perceived as it is, and why things are enjoyed by some people and why other things are not enjoyed by other people. If you have certain beliefs around money and you look at somebody, like for a long time I had the belief I couldn't earn more than minimum wage. It was just unfathomable to me. And I would look at people earning more and I would get angry and jealous. Really beneath all of that was actually my longing and desire to have more money. But I didn't know how to do it. I just did not believe it was possible. And so rather than rewiring myself back then, I was like, oh, money is the root of all evil. And what did that do? It just shackled me to minimum wage jobs that were never going to get me where I wanted to go in life. And so the way that I countered that was to bring awareness to these beliefs, and it was difficult. It meant I had to stop disliking people and instead get curious. So instead of being angry at people like Elon Musk, I actually looked at people like Elon Musk and thought, well, what did they do to generate that wealth? And then I see, okay, well, they're solving problems and people are paying for those problems to be solved. Is there a way that I can do that? Okay, I understand creative things. Can I help other people that don't understand creative things to understand creative things? Can I do things for them? And this is what led me then to seeing myself in these people that I previously disliked. And so if we have different political beliefs from one person to the next, if we can actually put ourselves in their shoes, it doesn't mean we have to agree with them, but we can at least understand. And it's often the things that are like really deep and true to us that hurt the most when people disagree or when they express their distaste toward us. When I started gaining traction online, my initial audience was young men like in their late teens, and they were quite rude to me in the comments, and they would often make fun of my physical appearance. And while that did hurt a little bit, for the most part I was able to kind of ignore it, because I was like, well, it's so ridiculous. I mean, of course, we all have different preferences as to someone's level of body hair or, you know, the length of their beard or whatever. So, you know, it was easy enough to manage that. But when it comes to like this channel, for example, where I post a lot more thought out and serious topics, and I talk about things and I share a lot more about myself, I can get comments from people that completely misunderstand what I've said or misinterpret my intention, which is natural. But it hurts a lot more because I'm like, this is my life's work here. This is my integrity that you're questioning. But then I just remember They are just perceiving it in a certain way. And I am then assuming that is dislike or that is rejection. But it's really just the other person's perception. I could get in the comments and start typing angry things and be like, no, you don't understand, you're an idiot. But there was a mindset shift that I gathered a while back from this guy called Flynn Skidmore. He's a therapist and just a very great speaker. He said when people get at him in the comments, instead of getting defensive, he gets curious. So he sees, well, what is it that this person is saying about me? Or what is it about their perspective? He goes into it. And so when I got a comment last week, somebody was basically saying something that I disagreed with. And I thought, well, if I was to be curious about this, what would my response be? And instead of being defensive, I just explained a little bit more. And we ended up having a nice exchange. And it was pleasant and it was lovely. And I felt better. That person felt better. We got to interact. Happy days. There's an interesting paradox. When we stop liking or disliking other people and recognize that it's about our preferences and our experience, it just doesn't mean as much when other people like or dislike you. If people are commenting on all of your stuff or you're getting all of these likes, you notice that it doesn't really satiate you. It doesn't really mean anything. And so long as you put meaning onto it and keep seeking it, you'll end up unfulfilled. And similarly, if there's an absence of it, or if there's negative comments or dislikes or whatever, that too will harm you. So long as either of them matter to you, you're constantly going to be running toward more likes, or you're going to be running away from negative comments. Whereas if you just surrender and accept that most of it's out of your control and it's none of your business, it's just a lot easier to navigate things from a more neutral perspective. And that's tough because it's a lot easier to go about life without changing your beliefs. It's a lot easier to continue seeking external validation. It's a lot easier to not understand other people. But when you take the time to do that, you find an equilibrium, a balance within yourself, which allows you to ultimately attract more of the experiences that you want. And even the ones that come in that you don't want, it doesn't really matter because you have your center. And the more that you try to achieve in this world, the bigger you try to be, the more people are going to criticize you for that as well, because it's hard to understand. Our belief system is not really empowering in this world. Like we're suppressing a lot of our power and our truth and our authenticity. And when we do that, we're just not actualizing and reaching our potential. And then when we see other people reach their potential, that's going against everything we've been taught, because we've been taught to go to school, to go to college, to get a job, to retire at whatever age the retirement age is going to be. There's no massive achievement to be had there. But then some people, probably like you, have really big goals that are outside of that paradigm. And then when other people that are in that paradigm see us trying to do our thing, it's like, oh, but you can't do that. You need to just accept that and let that go and let people think those things about you and do the thing anyway, because that's what you want to do. I'm an artist, but I also consider myself a businessman. And that's very confusing for a lot of people. They don't see how they can intersect. A lot of people dislike me when I have the businessman hat on, when I have money things going on. And then other people, they love me when they perceive me as a starving artist. I put out a video last week. I was expressing myself. It was an artistic piece. The sentiment of the piece that I was sharing was that, it was frustration with the modern world that we live in, and the struggle and the emotion. And for me, that was an expression, that was an art piece. And it was very much part of my business plan, which is to have people, see my art, to consume my art, to potentially hire me for help with their media and artistic projects. And that's cool, and that's what I like. But then there's kickback because people arguing with me as if to say that I shouldn't be posting things online, looking for validation online. And these are all, different perspectives, and they're all valid. It was kind of triggering for me to be challenged by these people, because they were planting seeds, whether they consciously intended to do that or not. They were planting seeds of doubt in my mind. And that's just showing me where I'm at and like my beliefs. In those situations, I need to either get angry, or I need to tap into my compassionate self and see, okay, what's happening here? Where are they coming from? And that's where this whole video came from, was realizing that I'm being misunderstood. And that's okay. It's impossible for everybody to understand us as we want to be understood, because we're all just viewing the world through our own lens and through our own trauma and through our own past. And that's going to look and feel different for everybody. And it's not something that we can control. So just let people think the things that they're going to think about you. And Don't be so hard on yourself or them for thinking how they think, because we're all doing our best, whether we like to admit that or not. And so for me, the only way is to just be a kind person. Be humble, be compassionate, keep learning, commit to a life of learning. Don't commit to being liked, don't commit to being likable. Just be open, be kind, be compassionate, and always be aware that nothing is permanent in this existence. It's always changing, it's always floating, we're always getting new information, new insights, new perspectives, new technology, new this, new that. So don't be getting bogged down whether or not someone likes you or dislikes you. Like, clearly there's no method to this madness. Sometimes it can seem that amidst a sea of millions of single people that are supposedly looking for relationships, that nobody wants to be with you. And then dating apps came along, and literally you know that there's thousands of people in your local area that are looking at your picture and are looking for a relationship, but they still choose not to go with you, or maybe you don't connect very well. And I think it's safe to say that you're not alone in feeling that way. If that is how you feel, at the very least, I stand there with you. Just like anything else in the world, dating apps can be abused. I mean, if you're constantly just on a dating app trying to find people to date you, put all of your eggs in that basket, then that might not be the wisest thing to do, because fact of the matter is there's still people out there on the street that you could talk to, and the only difference is that, you know, on a dating app, like, the rejections might appear less severe than if you're out on the street and someone actually said, oh no, I'm not attracted to you, because then, you know, you have to deal with that, you know, for as long as it takes you to walk away from that person. Whereas with the dating app, it's a lot safer, you know, you're just kind of chilling. When you're out on the street, yeah, it is probably the case that a lot of people there are looking for love, but it's something that we're not overly trained to seek out in person, because there's so much fear of being rejected by somebody, whatever that means for you, or being ridiculed or laughed at, and that might happen. With dating apps, it kind of makes it a little bit safer, because you know that the people that you're coming across and that you're messaging, or, like, you know, super liking, or whatever you're doing, you know that they are at least soliciting to some extent the interaction from you. We can see it as a very safe alternative to going up to people on the street, because, yeah, we don't necessarily know the relationship status of people on the street, nor do we know if they're looking for love or, you know, what they want. But having said that, you never know what might happen if you go down that route. It's a traumatizing experience to be single at a certain age, in my culture anyway. You know, there's all sorts of statistics about the average age to get married, and how likely you are to remain married, or how likely you are to divorce, or how likely you are to be single forever. It's such a mind boggle. You know, like, you're a human, you pop out, and, like, let's just be real, like, marriage and long-term relationships and all of this stuff, these are totally just, like, societal norms. They're not actually normal in terms of the human species. They're just made up ideas, and just look at different cultures, they have completely different outlooks on all of these things. Like, in India, they're getting married when they're teenagers, and over here you're getting married in your mid-30s and whatever. Like, clearly there's no method to this madness. And that's what makes it all the worse when you're, like, I'm in my mid to late 20s, and some people I know are getting married, and it's like, I haven't even gotten into a relationship to even put in the whatever average 5 years until you get married type thing, and there's so much pressure under that. Like, it's like,
listen, just hit it really hard and really fast.
You're there trying to live your best life, but you're just worried about what everyone's going to think about you, because you're not in a relationship or this or that. And if you want to be in a relationship, power to you, and if that finds you, then that's awesome. But I suppose I want to emphasize that we ought not to be ashamed to be single, you know, if it's now or forever. To express that you want connection in your life is to be vulnerable, and to be vulnerable is often frowned upon. You know, it's not the macho man thing to do, or it inconvenienced your parents when you cried when you were a kid.
It's overtime right now, and there's a penalty shot about to take place. This happens like once every 10 years.
so they told you not to do that. And then, you know, you go a lot of your life suppressing emotion and suppressing your true desires, your humane desires. Like, humans are a relationally dependent species, and we require connection. It's not negotiable. Once you have those basic needs met of, you know, food and water and shelter and whatnot, then we are looking for the next step up on the ladder, which is emotional connection. It's romance, it's love, it's physical touch. We want connection, we want love. And some people find that through dating, some find it through drinking or dancing or painting, whatever it is. Dating apps highlight how much we all have in common, but how afraid we are to admit that. It can be seen as a sign of weakness to express your needs and your desires. This is what keeps us from each other. This is what keeps us in a state of disconnection. If we're not willing to be honest and upfront with what it is we want, you know, be it in terms of like our job or in terms of relationships, then we're going to continue to shoot ourselves in the foot. We're going to continue to manifest and create lives for ourselves and relationships that we don't actually want, because we're too afraid to say, no, this is what I want. I want this. And I know that maybe you will judge me for wanting this, but that's what I want. And there's so much repressed and suppressed desire that we push down. That's fine, you can do that for a certain amount of time, but ultimately you probably will arrive at a stage in your life where you just think, like, I can't do this anymore. It actually sucks more to not go after the thing that I want than it does to suppress it. Like, it was fine for 10 years, but now I'm just like, I want to sing songs. Like, I want to get up there and sing. Maybe you want to be a chef and your friends don't approve of that, and you're like, I just can't hold it in anymore. I got to make a chicken tandoori. And then you go and you make a chicken tandoori, and it's like, I'm not stopping. And then, you know, you write a cookbook and all of this wonderful stuff happens because you just decided, I'm worth more than my peers' perception of me. The thing about relationships and dating and family and even, you know, money, everything in life, you don't actually need anything in particular in life in order to thrive. There's sufficient nourishment that comes from waking up each day and doing your best, you know, being of service to the whole. You know, how can I make this day the best day for everybody involved? And if that looks like, you know, you taking a bath for yourself, or you watering a plant on a hot day, or you smiling at someone that you meet down the street, then that's perfectly fine. That's not better or worse, more or less, than if you make love to someone and impregnate them with triplets. It doesn't matter, because there's always nourishment available to us in our inherent nature. We could compare it to like food. If you're having food, you can put salt on the food and it's going to bring out a whole bunch of different flavors, but like, it's not actually really going to change how that food nourishes you. Yeah, like, it tastes different and it appeals different to the senses, but fundamentally your body is still getting very, very similar nutrients. I think it's the same with the way that we live our lives, be it living our lives, you know, monogamous, single, polyamorous, or whatever. Dating apps, they put a lot of pressure on us in ways, because we think, well, if I'm on a dating app with all these people that want to date, or even if I'm in this world with everyone who seems to want to be with someone, but no one can find anyone. I mean, not nobody, but like a lot of people aren't finding people, and it's like, that doesn't make sense. If we all want connection, why can't we just connect with each other? Well, maybe it's that right now a lot of the people that you're trying to connect with aren't actually truly trying to connect with people, but they believe they are, because that's what the societal conditioning says. It said to get married, it said to find a lover. I think often in life we look at things as if, I'm going to do this in order to achieve this. You doing this, like your desire to do this, might not actually be relevant to, you know, doing this thing. It might actually be the thing that causes you to meet somebody that points you in this direction, then you end up over here. You know, I like to believe in the magic of the universe, and the universe chooses the path of least resistance. So the path of least resistance in this scenario is to get you to go to this shop to buy a kebab, and then in the kebab, in the lineup, you meet someone that has a job in this, a sushi restaurant and you wanted to be a sushi chef your whole life, and so you end up getting a job in the sushi restaurant because you're the guy you met in the kebab shop, but the reason you wanted to get the kebab was to bring it to your friend's house. But then you had to call your friend and say, oh, sorry, I can't because I've got an interview with this sushi restaurant, and then boom, you can see your friend later, and now you got a job in a sushi restaurant making sushi. I invite you to be open to the possibility that your true love is not in a person right now. It could be next week, could be 5 years from now, or it could be today, but like it might not be. Maybe you find love walking down the street, observing the sky, or watching the ebb and flow of the ocean, or feeling the sand between your toes, or having a glass of water. There's so many things that we can do, and there's so much joy to be had in each and every activity that we do, in each and every moment that we live, that it doesn't make sense to be pushing all of that back or holding that off to feel joy and love until there's someone there to share it with. Because ultimately, in cultivating it by ourselves, doesn't it give us a beautiful foundation to go into a relationship with? Because if you can't enjoy having a delicious meal or a nice quiet walk, how likely is it that you're going to be able to enjoy the totality of that relationship? Because all of these things are probably going to factor into your relationship as well. Be you on a dating app looking for love, or be you at the end of your tether on a dating app thinking, oh, I've done something wrong here. I've tried all the profile variations and every subscription and I'm still not having any luck. Well, maybe the teaching there for you is to go date yourself for a while and see what that's like. You're not everyone's cup of tea, but you are someone's cup of tea. Have a good day. Life is experienced through a spectrum. So you can't be old if you're not young at some point. You can't be happy if you're not sad. You can't have the color light blue without the color blue, and so on and so forth. Some parts of the spectrum, in this case we're talking about the spectrum of emotions, they're a lot more difficult for us to embody as humans. It sucks being sad and it's nice to be happy. We all know this. And maybe one day you stumble upon a self-help book or a video or some sort of meditation practice and you decide, oh, I'm going to eradicate all sadness from my life and just be happy forever. And then you get to a point where you can't seem to set your emotional cruise control to happy. And then you get really frustrated at yourself, thinking like, what am I doing wrong here? You see, when all you want to do is experience one end of the spectrum, it means that you're rejecting the opposite end. But the catch is that you can't have one end of the spectrum without the other. This is where I feel, in my opinion, toxic positivity comes into play, is when you try to get away from one end of the spectrum and only hang out in one, like the happiness realm, we'll say. So you don't want to be sad, so you just want to be happy. The issue with that is you can't have happy without sad. In rejecting sadness, you're simultaneously rejecting happiness. So then the question is, how do we get around this? How do we be positive, but not in a way that is toxic and rejecting the spectrum? Well, for a second, visualize this spectrum with me. So we have here on one side, we have sadness, and then here we have happiness. So we've got this line, okay? And on this line, you could call it the human experience. So the human experience spans from here to here. We tend to want to stay here because it feels good, happiness, it's nice. And we don't really want to be over here. So we're like, I'll spend a week in happiness and 5 minutes in sadness. But it doesn't really work that way, because you tend to jump between the two and you don't always get to decide when that happens. So with this spectrum line in mind, I want to draw your attention to another point which we'll put around here, okay? It's kind of floating above the human experience. I like to call it the observer. You could call it divine, the all-knowing, God, whatever word you are comfortable with. From this perspective, it's like a zoomed out understanding. So you see yourself down here as a human, going through all of these emotions. And, sometimes it's tough, sometimes it's not so tough. But you understand that you can't have one without the other from this perspective. I almost imagine like this as like a person like floating above me, or it's me floating above myself, basically. So when I'm observing myself in sadness, I'll see, oh, okay, David's sad today. No problem. That's cool. He's just experiencing this side of the spectrum, and that's fine. This higher version of me knows that the sadness is a fundamental part of the human experience, and that without the sadness, there won't be the happiness. From here, we don't judge the sadness. We don't try to get rid of it, nor do we praise the happiness and try to hold on to it as long as possible. So in this zoomed out approach, we see that happiness and sadness as individual emotions aren't that significant anymore, but rather they're just two sides of the same stick. And that understanding has really allowed me to be more welcoming of the sadness, and at the same time, I don't clutch onto the happiness when it arrives, because I know that ultimately the most important part of all of this is the full experience, the full spectrum of emotion. So the way that I like to navigate those heavier emotions, you know, on this side of the spectrum, what I like to do is acknowledge that it's there, acknowledge that sadness has arisen, keep it there, but also direct my attention to things in my life that are currently happening, you know, maybe around me or in front of me or later on in the day. So for example, if I have like a nice dinner that I'm looking forward to, if I have a phone call with a friend, or if I'm meeting someone, or if it's nice weather, whatever it is that tickles your fancy, I sort of draw my attention in that direction. And in doing that, I'm not pushing away the sadness, but I'm just simply recognizing and acknowledging things that are in my life at this point in time that are bringing me, you know, a feeling of warmth or whatever. Another thing that I do is I just offer myself the soothing and the reassurance that I might seek from another person or from a vice or whatever, and just recognize and acknowledge, you know, from this higher perspective, and see myself in that heaviness, and just let myself know that it's okay to be there. You're not going to be there forever, and being there serves its purpose. Another way that I practice healthy positivity is sharing what it is that I want to see in the world as often as I can. So that might be giving a compliment to someone. Lately, I've been posting on people's YouTube videos, or if they have a social media post that resonates with me, I'll post on it and I'll offer my appreciation to the creator, because it's beautiful for them to hear that their work is appreciated, and it's amazing for me to be able to express that and recognize what it's done for me, and share that with the other person. You see, spreading what you wish to see in the world, be it gratitude or abundance or whatever, it's a surefire way to bring more of that into your awareness, because as you recognize it and as you see it throughout your day, and as you bring your attention and awareness to it, that's going to become ingrained in your subconscious, and you're almost going to gravitate toward these things, and you're going to pick these things out, and you're going to relate to your surroundings in a whole new way. And throughout all of this, we're not pushing away any side of the spectrum. We're just simply acknowledging things for what they are. And if there's a change that we can make that would be beneficial, then we can make that change, and not be so attached to how fast that change happens or how it ripples through in the exterior, but rather just having that intention is enough. And yeah, you'll see things that make you sad, scared, and angry, and that's okay. It's an opportunity for you to give that positivity to yourself. And it's not to say, oh, I don't want to feel this, I'm going to try feel this instead. No, but it's acknowledging it for how it is. It's not that you're ever going to feel one way or another, or that things on the outside are going to look one way or another. There's always going to be a dance between the two. And it's learning to embrace each move and each step of the way that we achieve what I would call peace or joy. You know, you can be joyful whether you're sad or happy, because joy exists up here, because joy is knowing that sadness and happiness are both fundamental to the overall experience. So that's that. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If it brought you any value, if you could share it or like it or subscribe to the channel if you want to see more stuff. There's always cool things coming out here, and I really appreciate you, and I hope that you have a beautiful day wherever you are. What the f is that noise? F***ing tractors in the field, god damn it. Right when I'm recording a video, there's a tractor in the field next door. Well, it's a great thing that I live so far away from the hustle and bustle of cities that there's a tractor mowing up the fields. See what I did there? I found the blessing in the moment of frustration. Oh my God. A lot's happened over the last 3 years. My content has reached over 5 million people all around the world. I've had my most successful year in business to date, and I spent like a year of the last 3 years traveling. And I also managed to swing a road trip around Iceland in a van for free. And the craziest thing is that I achieved all of this by doing nothing. Now, of course, I'm gonna have to unpack that and explain how doing nothing led to those things happening for me. But first, I'm gonna make some tea. So for the longest time in my life, I was under the impression that in order to achieve anything of greatness, I would need to hustle and be tired and be the guy that says, oh, I can't do that, I'm busy. Well, over the last few years, I've come to realize that maybe that isn't actually true. In fact, it's not true. I would define nothing as something that's not directly contributing to a goal. So right now, I've just gone for a walk, I'm sitting in a forest, and even though on this particular occasion, I am recording a video for the YouTube channel while I'm in the forest, I typically don't film YouTube videos in the forest. I don't know if I was in the shot there. It's kind of far away. We were in shot. In order to give you some more context, this premise of the art of doing nothing, I need to tell you about my earlier attempts at business and entrepreneurship. See, I used to really like the idea of being busy and working all of the time. I guess I got the idea from movies or YouTube videos around hustle culture and, you gotta rise and grind and all of this stuff. At that time, I was doing loads of things, but nothing was really happening. And one time my mother even said to me, David, I think you're working too hard. There I was thinking, well, it's cool to be perceived in that way, but I have no clients, I have no revenue, and all I've really done is change the font on my website like 3 times a day because that's the only actionable thing I can think to do, but there's no point in having a website with cool font if no one even visits your website. And so there's only so much we can do relating to our business or relating to whatever it is you're striving toward in life. But knowing what to do and what's going to be most effective for the result that you desire is a whole other kettle of fish. Being busy seemed cool, but it wasn't useful. It wasn't helping me make money. It wasn't helping me have a life filled with purpose because I wasn't serving anyone. And that's ultimately what I've found to be the whole point of my existence, is to serve in some way, shape or form, be it through creativity, be it through offering a service, which in my case is creative as well. But what I've since realized is that rather than working on my business and getting no return on my investment of time, I could have just been doing nothing instead. And ironically, that would actually have progressed my business and increased my revenue and inspired all sorts of new ideas that I wasn't able to think of because I was too busy doing things. And I know that that doesn't make sense to the mind. I just want to assure you that this isn't one of those law of attraction, do nothing, just sit and visualize your dream life type of videos, because I've tried that too and it didn't work. I wouldn't personally recommend it. But there's an unforeseen consequence of doing nothing, such as going for a walk or having a cup of tea, and that is the quietness of the mind through which the muse or the inspiration for your groundbreaking idea or next action point comes in. To do nothing is when my best ideas come into my field, and it's from that place of nothingness that they enter, and then it's my responsibility as the human to take the idea and do something with it. When people ask me what I do, I don't really have the most straightforward answer a lot of the time, and there's this joke that I'm always working, air quotes around working, because I'm not really working per se. I've just gotten really good at doing nothing, and then occasionally when I'm acting upon the inspiration that came in the space of nothingness, that's when I'm working. So it's a very intentional approach to life and business, and a lot of my time is spent doing things that I just like doing or that aren't necessarily pushing me closer to a goal in a direct sense. But then in like a long-term sustainable game, it's generally pushing the business in the direction that I want it to go. Having said that, when it comes to the art of doing nothing, it's important to have a project or a goal or intention that you're working towards, because naturally when you're doing nothing and you're aware of these bigger pictures in your mind, the nothing that you're doing is just going to allow certain thoughts or certain things to come into your awareness in that context. So in my example, I make a lot of content as part of my brand. So that involves YouTube videos, that involves a newsletter. And back in the day when I began doing this, I was actively trying to come up with ideas for content. And sometimes I would just not have any ideas, and I would get so frustrated, and I would be afraid that I was going to run out of ideas, that I would never be able to continue my artistic path. For a while, I just had to surrender to that. I had to accept the possibility that maybe I wouldn't have any more ideas and that I couldn't make any more videos or I couldn't write any more music. That was about 3 years ago, since I accepted that it's possible that I'm not cut out for this. I've written probably around about 100 songs. I've never actually sat down intentionally to write a song. They all just pop into my head at points, or lyrics will pop into my head, or melodies, and I'll just make them. I've made over 300 videos across all different platforms, and I've never sat down for a brainstorming session, ever. I just have ideas pop into my head when I'm doing nothing, and then that's the thing that I know I need to do. But it comes from a space of nothingness. So I might be out and about walking and then think, oh, make a video on the art of doing nothing. That's how this one came to be. And that's where all of my creativity stems from these days. That's how all of my ideas, like even with my agency, I have a video agency, we do video production, editing work. One of my main clients right now, one day I was doing nothing, and then I had a thought of going onto this website, and I went onto the website and I saw a contact, and I just sent them an email, and it's a few months down the road and we've got a nice working relationship together. But that came again from doing nothing. I didn't wake up that day and think, oh shoot, I gotta get some more cash in the wazoo. I was just doing nothing, and then I had the thought, and then I did it. In the intro of this video, I said that I did a trip around Iceland for free. That came from doing nothing as well, because one day I was just sitting here on this couch actually. I was going to Iceland for something unrelated. I was running a marathon there. Then I was sitting here and I was thinking, why don't I just message every van company in Iceland and see if they'll give me a van and do some sort of video collaboration? And so I messaged all of them, and sure enough, one of them got back to me and was happy to give me a van. So when I refer to the art of doing nothing, I want to make it clear that there's two ways we can do nothing, in my opinion. One way is to fill your mind with nonsense. That would be social media scrolling. That would be gossiping. That would be using substances to excess. All of that is possibly going to prevent the muse from coming through, because there's not enough silence. There's not enough space, because it's filled up with all of this content, with all these other people's opinions. And the other version of doing nothing is to have a quieter mind. And that comes from going for a walk, going for a hike, going for a run even. Or one time I went for a cycle and I just heard in my mind, I'm a little bit fucked, but that's all right. And I was like, that's a song. I got to go make that song. I didn't even have my phone on me, so I couldn't even record it. So I was literally just singing it in my head for 6 kilometers, cycling back home. And then a couple of weeks later, this is what I made.
Hope if I make it, I say she ate this. Lust for life, chasing highs. I'm a little bit fucked, but that's alright. Long time.
So an entire song came out of doing nothing, and that one is super fun to play, and I love performing that. And it just came out of nowhere. Another way that this whole concept of doing nothing has showed up for me is in my latest offering, which is my guided meditation series, which you can check out in the description. I was just sitting one day and I had a thought: create a musical healing experience and then tell your audience about it. Let them know that you've done these guided meditations. And so I thought, okay, I'll do that. I worked on the songs and produced all of the music, and it was hard at times, but ultimately I got it done and people have been enjoying it. And again, that came from
nowhere. Like I didn't sit down and think, okay, what product are we gonna make? Like, let's come up with a list of 10 products and then find the best one out of those 10. I just did it. It was effortless. And in order for it to be effortless, you need to have little to no attachment toward the whole thing. I think the issue with modern day commerce or business or transaction is that we want everything to have a result as quickly as possible. That's just not the nature of the universe. Things come and things go at their own pace. An example I thought of to include in this video is, one of them is about dating and then the other one is about making money. So if I wanted to make money, I was like, oh shoot, I need to make money. My reaction based on this whole world and matrix would be like to go on a job board and try find a job the super linear way, and then apply to things and be like, oh, to whom it may concern, I'm very passionate about this. Like all of this fluff that is not, it's not me. Like I would never naturally do that. It's just because that's what society has conditioned me to speak like. And the point still stands is we want to just do things and get a result immediately, and we're not willing to step into uncertainty and be open to the possibility that maybe your new job opportunity is actually in the person that you say hi to when you're walking down by the beach, and he's like, oh, you look like a person who could help me with this task that I need help with. And then if we're looking in like the realm of dating, with dating apps, if I'm like, oh shoot, I want to date someone, I just download an app and expect that I'll be on a date by tomorrow. And it's like, maybe, but it's a bit of an unreasonable request, and there's too much masculine energy, there's too much thinking, analytical, linear thought process going on there. And in reality, these things need a bit more flow. Just because I want something right now, I don't necessarily need it. And even if I did get it, maybe it wouldn't be of service to me, like in the long game, in the sustainable picture. So the kind of nothing that I'm referring to here, you could call it active rest. And that's where these $1 million ideas can come in. And you don't need to try super hard for these ideas to come in. Just simply allow them to come in, take note of them, and then take action on it. Usually the old way I was trying, like the whole law of attraction manifestation way, would be you just sit and visualize stuff and you have ideas, but there's no, I was missing the action. I wasn't taking any action toward the ideas. So in the example of the song, or like the meditation series that I created, I had the idea and then I took the action to actually produce the music and to, write the lyrics and write the meditations or whatever. So that's the difference. Do nothing until the idea comes, and then take that idea and do something. But don't just be doing things because you think you're supposed to do them. It's probably going to be a waste of your energy because it's coming from a heady, analytical place rather than an integration of the two, the masculine and the feminine, action and creation. You can be in your head all day listening to all of the self-help videos on YouTube or podcasts and reading books and stuff, but if you don't act on any of that, there's no point. You'd be better off just acting than reading and consuming a bunch of stuff but not doing anything with it. You see, we've been pushed to believing that a sense of urgency and hustle and action are all required in order to achieve anything of greatness in this life. And at points, these things are helpful and useful, but only as part of a holistic system. You see, you can't replace the divine pace of things unfolding. We need rest, play, and discipline in order to achieve or progress toward anything of magnitude in this life. One without the other will have an imbalance. This is how we create a sustainable approach to life. Otherwise, you might burn out, or you just maybe enjoy it less than you could have otherwise. I'm just sharing what's worked for me. Take it or leave it. For now, I will leave you. Wishing you well. Have a beautiful rest of your day. As I mentioned earlier, there's a newsletter. You can get it in the description, and also the meditation series is also down in the description, so check that out. Check out this video next if you enjoyed this one. Like, comment, subscribe, do all of those things. Have a beautiful day. You're an amazing person. Goodbye. Without leaps of imagination or dreaming, we lose the excitement of possibilities. Dreaming, after all, is a form of planning. When I was younger, I had a dream of becoming a famous actor, so I got to work on figuring out a plan that would make this happen. I looked into all of my favorite actors and I figured out how they got their start, by what age, and from that, I deduced that I needed to move to Los Angeles.
As a 10-year-old with no resources, it was very difficult for me to actualize these plans. And once I got my parents involved, they offered that maybe I should try to do it here in Ireland before going all the way across the world. As it turned out, I was quite shy and I wasn't actually even willing to go to the acting classes in my local community because I was afraid of what the other kids would think of me. And so soon enough, my dreams of becoming an actor in Hollywood dried up. And my ambition as a performer didn't stop there, because in my adolescence I discovered that I was quite interested in music and I started to sing, and I found that to be a very therapeutic process. And so my next big plan was that I was going to become a famous musician, a famous artist, and that I was going to play to hundreds of thousands of people. And in between songs, in between my own songs, I would stop and I would interject and I would tell the audience how beautiful they were and how they could achieve their goals and that they are worth something to this world. Now at this point, a lot of people get slapped in the face by reality, and their goals and their plans fade into the distance as they get a different job in a different industry or pursue a different path, or something else happens that prevents them from executing on that plan. Now I had a plan, and it would be accurate to say that my plan has not materialized. My plan to reach thousands of people on stage and then tell them, you're amazing, it hasn't worked. But the initial intention was that I was going to reach people and I was going to communicate to them their value and their worth, and I was going to share something that would help them along their journey. When I entered college, I started having conversations with people, and it started to pop up every now and again. People would recommend that I become a motivational speaker, and I thought, interesting. I'd never thought of myself as a speaker per se. I always thought that I would speak, but only off the back of my artistry. It was quite encouraging and it was quite flattering to hear that I was actually giving value to people without having to build up a huge audience. I could just have a conversation in my day-to-day interactions. It seemed that even though my plans kept on failing, I was still somehow achieving my goals. Now also, while I was in college, I started to revisit my old dreams of being an actor. At this point, I guess I was slightly more confident, and I was writing scripts, comedy sketches, and I thought, well, I'll just put myself in them, because if I write the script and if I direct it, I'll just cast myself. And that worked. I just wrote the scripts. Turns out people kind of liked them, and I cast myself. Was I the best actor?
Sorry, there's a fly.
Maybe not, but I managed to get myself on screen, which is kind of what I wanted when I was a kid. So I achieved that goal too, but I didn't have to do the thing I thought I had to do to get there. We fast forward a few more years later, and I had started to learn about, spirituality, self-improvement, all of those things. And I felt as though I had some insight to share with people. And so what I did was I took my acting skills and my writing skills and put the self-improvement stuff into comedy sketches. And then all of a sudden, one of my videos took off with me talking about getting up early. I didn't even think it was a good video, but the algorithm said otherwise. And so again, my goal of reaching a lot of people, it happened, but there wasn't really a plan per se, but there was something that interested me, and then I took action aligned with those interests and with that objective. And then all of a sudden, the goal that I had set when I was 10 years old seemed to happen through an application that didn't even exist when I was 10 years old. Planning is a funny concept really when you think of it, because the things that have allowed me to achieve the goals that I had set for myself, like the actual steps, didn't exist back when I had those plans initially. So how could I anticipate what was going to happen and how it was going to turn out? I haven't let go of my goals to reach millions of people with my music, but the plan, I don't really have it. I mean, I could knock on a few doors, I could send a few messages, I could, go play here, go play there, release this, release that, and that might all work. And those are things that I do. But are those the things that are going to bring my goal to fruition? Maybe. Maybe Lewis Capaldi or some other cool artist is looking for support on their next tour and they see this video. But ultimately, there are so many things at play that I don't even know. There's so many factors that haven't yet come into the equation. I'm speaking to a camera right now, uploading this video to YouTube, and when I was a kid, I didn't think that this would be possible because it wasn't in existence. I never thought that I could just skip the whole building up a huge artist brand presence and then playing to crowds of people and just go straight to telling people what I have to say, what I have to share. I didn't realize at the time that if I just waited a few more years or a decade and a half more or less, that I would be able to just create and share directly to you as we are now, without having to build up this massive audience, go out on tour, go out on stage, and then be like, hey, you're great. It's not that I've let go of that objective. It's still an objective that I expect and anticipate I will succeed in achieving. But the way that I achieve that, I'm not really sure how it's gonna go. But I do know that my plans in the past haven't quite worked out. A little while ago, I put out a video on the internet telling my story. It reached a lot of people. At the time of recording this video, 500,000 people have looked at it. Pretty cool, my younger self would say. But with his awareness at the time, he didn't know that he could reach people and have that impact through this method, through this medium. The initial ambition, that dream that we have at any stage, I'm still dreaming today as I was back then. But that dream is planning. On some universal level, we need to remove ourselves from this practical matrix thing and don't be so focused on how A leads to B, which leads to C, and realize that there's more things happening. There's people coming in and out of your life all of the time. There's algorithms, there's a universal algorithm. It's not bad to have a plan, but just know that your plans aren't really going to go according to plan. It's a great defense mechanism against uncertainty. But guess what? Within uncertainty, there is so much potential. There is gold hidden in a river. But as you look at the river, as you look at the flowing water, you just see water and you don't see what's beneath it. But it's beneath it that you find what it is you're looking for. But you have to have the courage to get into that river, to take off your boots or put on your boots, depending. If they're waterproof boots, you can put them on. And then within that river, you'll find what you're looking for, maybe. But you got to get into it. For me, getting into the river looks like making a video, looks like making a song, looks like playing that show, playing a gig, going on the street, busking. There's so many different ways that we can have our dreams, have our goals be realized, and they're not always in accordance with the plan that we have. The mind says
anything but uncertainty.
But then the universe or something else sees uncertainty and thinks, what could we put there? If you're to set a goal and then have a plan to get to that goal, and all of a sudden your plan stops working, or maybe it just never begins to work, then you might let go of the goal, which is such a foolish decision, I would argue, because the goal and the plan are actually quite unrelated. Things are always happening. The beauty of life is that your plans, they don't really matter so much to the world at a larger scale. It's a tool that we've adopted, and the universe doesn't really care about your plans because things are going to happen when you least expect it, like this incense stick just falling. I really wanted music to take off a long time ago, and I really wanted YouTube to take off a long time ago, and I really wanted to have a romantic relationship, and I really wanted to have a lot of money, and I really wanted to have my own place. I really wanted to have the freedom and flexibility to just go everywhere whenever I wanted. But if I had gotten all of what I wanted at the time that I wanted it, then I would have missed out on a lot, I'm realizing now. You know, just a couple of weeks ago, I was in a cafe and I met this girl and I thought she was attractive and I was hoping that maybe something might happen, but nothing happened. And it was that day that I made the video, How Self-Improvement Ruined My Life. And that video is just taking this channel to a new milestone, a new level. And if I was too busy, texting somebody or out on a date, then I might not have made that video. And it's only now with the realization that the video has helped me to reach people and helped me to grow and expand my career and get me closer to my other goals, that I realized, oh, it was actually a blessing that I was single. If it weren't for the fact that I didn't have the money and flexibility to perpetually travel the world, I wouldn't have realized that there's community here where I live now. The fact that I didn't have the money to get my own place to live in led me to